Lin Xiao was originally defending against Qin Mu's 72 formations, and Qin Mu had first suppressed him with his magnetism divine art. Next, the power of the formation burst forth and covered him with injuries. However, he was a god after all, and even if he had severed his cultivation from an extremely high realm to the realm of honored god, his horizons and knowledge were still there. He was just caught off guard by Qin Mu. He quickly reacted, and his severed cultivation was refined into a big sun by him. It wasn't too difficult for him to use the power of the sun to break Qin Mu's formations. Even village chief sword picture couldn't block the power of his son, much less Qin Mu. Yet, Shahuali's knife had come at the right time, and the knife severed his head. In terms of coordination, only Su Shanghua could catch up to Qin Mu. Shahuali's change in thoughts wouldn't be able to catch up to Qin Mu. Thus Qin Mu had laid out the formations ahead of time and transformed his cultivation and divine art into formations, ambushing Lin Xiao. The power of the formations was extremely strong, and when the power of the 72 formations burst forth, it even surpassed Qin Mu attacking personally. However, the formations were dead, so he could only control Lin Xiao for a moment, unable to kill him. That was where Shahuali had come in place. The 72 formations were just to create a chance for Shahuali. Shahuali could never pass through Qin Mu's formations easily and grab hold of this chance. If it was Su Shanghua could understand the operation and marvel of these formations, so he could easily grab hold of the chance. Thus, Qin Mu's last formation was a teleportation formation which carried Shahuali through the power of those formations, delivering this best chance into Shahuali's hands. This was the reason why Shahuali said the battle of killing God was already 90% completed. Right in the instant when Shahuali slew Lin Xiao, that sun lost control and blazing flames swept in all directions. The flames were like overflowing waves that toppled the mountains and overturned the seas. Qin Mu used the last of his magic power to execute a teleportation divine art, to rescue Shahuali out. The sea of flames pounced over furiously and drowned out Qin Mu. The flames were the light of teleportation, and it passed by Qin Mu's body with a swoosh. Qin Mu instantly vanished. In the next instant, both of them appeared outside of the tunnel. They saw a pillar of flame shooting out from the tunnel, and it was several hundred miles long. It was very astonishing. After a moment, the pillar of fire vanished. Qin Mu and Shahuali stumbled as they landed on the ground. Because Shahuali was too nervous and had used too much force, his body was trembling. His arms and legs were also trembling, while the demon knife behind him was also shaking non-stop. Qin Mu was weak because he had exhausted all of his vital qi and magic power. Thus he had no choice but to sit and rest on the ground. Shahuali popped his head to look into the tunnel, and he could still see wisps of flame that were no extinguished. However, a whiff of cooked meat spread over and raised their appetite. Shahuali swallowed his saliva and took a glance at Qin Mu. "Cult Master Qin, you have eaten hen dragons before, right? In that case, have you eaten before a hen dragon that's on God realm?" Qin Mu's spirit was raised and he shook his head. "I had not." Shahuali reminded him. "There's one down there and it's already cooked. I can even smell it burning." Qin Mu stood up shakily and said with a smile, "This hen dragon is very huge, we just need to cut off the burnt parts. The other parts must still be tender and juicy. I still have some salt, oil, sauce, vinegar, and all other kinds of condiments." "Me too." Both of them looked at each other and they suddenly laughed loudly, their laughter traveling far into the distance. When they stopped laughing, neither of them had much energy left. They supported each other to walk into the tunnel. After a moment, Qin Mu's astonished cries came out from inside. "Your demon knife eats as well? Is this still a knife?" "This demon knife of mine is actually a life form in my celestial heavens. It's called Dragon's Tooth. When I followed Teacher Luo to train in East Heaven, I received this knife on Numinous Treasure Mountain." How delicious. Teacher Luo said that East Heaven was the territory of Great Emperor Qinglong. Great Emperor Qinglong's vitality is vigorous and his teeth grow very fast. Thus he has to grind his teeth frequently. Thus he uses Numinous Treasure Mountain to grind his teeth. Numinous Treasure Mountain is very durable, and would break off his teeth sometimes, so it would form life forms like Dragon's Tooth on Numinous Treasure Mountain. Most of the people learning knife in the celestial heavens mostly go there to seek treasures, hoping to get one. However, not many are fated. Numinous Treasure Mountain? The numinous treasure mountain that can break East Heaven's great Emperor Qinglong's teeth is then the treasure. Once I go to East Heaven, I will definitely take numinous treasure mountain away to turn it into a treasure. You can't lift it, that mountain is not smaller than Mount Meru. This is the dragon's liver, don't eat it first, it has a gamey taste. I have some onion and ginger here. Do you have things like sour green bean and sour chili? Shahuali, your cooking skills are not bad at all. I had also trained myself to cook. When I was cultivating with Fu Riluo, the food of the devil race is different from the food of the human race, thus I need to cook myself. Quite a long while later, both of them supported each other with their round bellies and walking shakily out of the tunnel. They sat down on the ground, huffing and puffing from being stuffed. When they were eating, they had experienced another cycle, and the palace where Celestial Empress' coffin was placed had recovered. Qin Mu and Jahuali's bellies were round from being stuffed, and even Jahuali's demon knife got fatter. He didn't know if the blade had gotten fatter as well. Qin Mu stumbled out of the hall and leaned against a pillar. He narrowed his eyes and looked outside. Celestial River flowed, and at this moment, the sun was currently setting in the west, and it lighted up this huge river beautifully. The red tinge on the river was like the rouge of a woman, and the color of the sunset was the red lips of a girl. I wonder which era is outside. Shahuali was too stuffed until he found it hard to walk. He walked over onto the stone steps and just sat down. Cult Master Qin, if you don't know which cycle is the initial cycle, do you still have the confidence to solve Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art? The cycle when the 4 deities board the ship, that would be the initial cycle. Qin Mu said with a calm expression. The moment the 4 deities board the ship, it is the same time when Feathered Forest Guards turns into the void. When we see figures turning from the void into reality, that would mean it's the initial cycle. Meanwhile, the 4 great deities will also appear soon. Shahuali's heart tightened and he said solemnly, "You said earlier that you have a way to borrow power from the 4 deities to break Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art. How powerful are the 4 deities? Are you sure you can do it?" Qin Mu revealed a smile and said leisurely, "The 4 deities weren't trapped on this ship, they still descended disaster on us afterward, and Dua sought knowledge under them. This meant that we had succeeded." Shahuali was stunned and he thought of a crucial point. What about Lin Shao? He will board the ship before the 4 deities, am I right? Which cycle would he board the ship? This guy's abilities are so high, if he boards the ship again we might not be his match. If he can escape out of Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art, it would be bad for us. It's very easy if we want to know when he boards the ship. Qin Mu touched his bulging belly and said with a smile, "When our bellies deflate, that means the cycle where Lin Shao boards the ship has come. Even if he can leave this ship, he won't have the memory he had on this ship. The most terrifying point is still." Shahuali looked at Qin Mu and saw his smile. He felt a chill even though it wasn't cold. Qin Mu said indifferently, "He is here on a mission to hide Ju Wuchen properly. Even if Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art is broken, he will still return to this ship time and time again, falling into the cycles. He will still become the tiny human in the lantern. He will be forever trapped in this ship. Not only him, as long as everyone in the 36 cycles doesn't have the memory on board this ghost ship, they will repeat what they had done before and board that ship again." He said softly, "They will go through continuous cycles, board the ship continuously, die continuously, revive again continuously, and board the ship again. There will be no end. The only way to escape is not to board the ghost ship when it comes." Shahuali's face changed drastically and he stuttered, "What you say is I won't have the memory during this period of time? I will still board this ship? That's not right, that's not right. Didn't you say you can borrow the power of the 4 deities to solve Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art? You even said the people already dead would revive and the people turned into the void will break free, returning to their respective eras." Qin Mu revealed a smile. The sun set in the west and vanished beneath the horizons. The light on the ship lit up and his face was flickering between light and dark. "I'm solving Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art, not destroying it. Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art will still reassemble itself. Her divine art won't vanish. To Celestial Venerable Ling, her divine art doesn't have the concept of what is called time. Everything in this world is substance. Even living things are also substances. Her divine art can break down any life, and also reassemble the substances that were broken down into the original life. This is the highest realm in creation. Under the flickering light, Qin Mu's had a dark gaze. Even if I borrow the power of the four deities, I can only solve her divine art temporarily. I can't erase her divine art completely. After I solve this divine art, everyone will be able to break free from the void. The people who had died will also revive. Prince Choming, who was killed by me, will also revive. They should still board this ship again and repeat what they had done. However, he said with a smile, you will preserve your memory because you are still alive. You and I will leave this ship the instant we borrow the power of the four deities to break Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art, returning back to our own era. You would be reassembled by Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art, so your memory will be preserved. Shahuali let out a sigh of relief. He suddenly said, I will stop Teacher Luo from boarding this ship. Qin Mu was slightly stunned. Shahuali said, he is still my teacher after all. He has taught me and raised me up, so I owe him a mountain debt of gratitude. I will stop him. I understand. Qin Mu nodded his head and said, you are such a person. Shahuali revealed a smile. After I stop him from boarding the ship, I will cut ties with him. I will go to eternal peace. Qin Mu nodded once again. Be careful in what you do. Shahuali said, you have to be careful too. Once Prince Choming is revived, he will definitely attack you again. Qin Mu smiled. He will die even faster. The light of the ship burst forth and drowned them. Qin Mu gently touched his belly and said, Lin Xiao is bringing Zhu Wuchen over and he's going to board soon. Let us go, we need to avoid them. After Lin Xiao boards the ship, the four deities will be boarding in a few more cycles. Shahuali hurriedly touched his belly, and his round belly earlier had deflated immediately. Both of them left quickly. After the light faded, the sun rose from the east. A group of gods brought a coffin and boarded the ship in a hurry. They rushed straight for the palace hall where Celestial Empress' coffin was placed. Not long later, both of them heard sounds of fighting coming from the palace hall. It was obvious that Lin Xiao had discovered he couldn't leave this ship. Thus he started a massacre to kill his companions. Shahuali asked, Cult Master Qin, will Celestial Venerable Ling board the ship? She will. But we won't see her. Qin Mu listened to the sounds of fighting quietly, and he looked at the pillar in front. On the pillar was the poem that Celestial Venerable Ling had left behind, and Qin Mu said calmly, she is not in her own divine art. The poem she leaves behind will forever stay on that pillar. After killing you guys, no one will leak any pieces of information. In the distance, Lin Zhao's voice traveled over and he clucked. Celestial Empress will take care of my descendants and let all of my descendants achieve meteoric success. The light burst forth again, and when the light faded, Qin Mu looked at the training field in front of the palace hall, and he saw the figures of the gods slowly appearing on the empty field. Qin Mu took a step forward and faced the strongest army of Dragon Han Celestial Heaven. He raised the commander's seal of feathered forest guards high up. The incomparably powerful gods turned around and looked at this youth walking in their faces. Shahuali felt uneasy and followed behind him. Feathered forest guards, one of the 10 armies of Dragon Han Celestial Heavens, it was the strongest combat power in Dragon Han Celestial Heavens. If the killing intent of these gods stirred, they didn't even need to move to overwhelm them to death. Suddenly, all of the gods lowered their heads and knelt down on one knee. With their fists cupped above their heads, they boomed in unison. Feathered forest guards, pays our respects to Right Commander. Rise. Qin Mu stretched out his palm. Follow me to battle. In the distance, a lantern flew up silently and the door of the lantern opened up. The tiny human transformed from Lin Xiao looked at this sight in utter fear. Gods with towering bodies rose and looked at the youth walking towards them. Commander's seal represented one's identity. It was proof to mobilize the military power. In the 10 armies of the Celestial Heavens, they only admit the seal and not the person. The 10 armies of the Celestial Heavens were only loyal to Celestial Emperor, so if there was no commander's seal, the commander wouldn't be able to even move the army. There were only 2 methods to mobilize the army. The first was with a commander's seal. The second was Celestial Emperor taking charge personally. As long as Qin Mu held the commander's seal, he would be the right commander of Feathered Forest Guards. He would have the power to mobilize the army. The commander's seal was brought away by founding master Wei Suifeng and handed over to Elder Qing Huang for safekeeping. Even with the commander's seal in hand, he couldn't mobilize this batch of strong gods until he came back to the origin of the ghost ship cycle. When feathered forest guards returned back from the void, Qin Mu could finally borrow this commander's seal to control this terrifying strength. In front of feathered forest guards, Qin Mu's face gradually changed into the face of Celestial Venerable Mu. Mu Qing of the 9 Celestial Venerables, Celestial Venerable Mu. The god soldiers looked at his face changing, and even though they looked astonished, they didn't ask anything. The 9 Celestial Venerables all have their unique abilities, and every one of them has extraordinary achievements. However, the most mysterious ones were still Celestial Venerable Qin and the Celestial Venerable Mu in front of them. They were always missing. No matter who was it, as long as they were in control of the commander's seal, they would be their leader. Qin Mu raised his hand and a sword flew out to sever the pillar which contained the poem Celestial Venerable Ling had left behind. The pillar flew over and his body expanded little by little. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the pillar, walking forward with 10,000 gods of feathered forest guards following behind him. Shahuali braved himself and he followed closely behind Qin Mu. He realized that Qin Mu was leading these gods towards the palace hall where Celestial Empress's coffin was in. In front of the palace hall, an incomparably strong dragon god was being locked up between the chains. He looked menacingly at Qin Mu, who was walking over, and shouted fiercely, "Heaven and earth changes, the unchanging constant of 36 people. What is the meaning of this? Tell me, what is the meaning?" Qin Mu stopped in his footsteps and his mind was blown. Shahuali hurriedly said, "Cult Master Qin, why have you stopped? This dragon is always saying the same things over and over again." Qin Mu shook his head and his mind was cleared up now. He pointed at King Dragon Count and said with a smile, "When I board this ship, you had said this phrase. I thought you were crazy and was spouting nonsense. Never would I expect that you aren't asking the others, you are asking me." He had a ridiculous feeling. That old dragon had a crazed expression and he continued to ask menacingly, "Tell me quickly, what is the meaning?" Qin Mu smiled. "Only by solving the unchanging constant can you leave." After saying so, he turned to bring the soldiers of feathered forest guards into the hall. "Solve the unchanging constant?" That old dragon was stunned and shouted, "How do you solve it? Don't go. Come back and tell me. How do I solve the unchanging constant?" Qin Mu walked into the hall and he saw 8 huge dragons guarding Celestial Empress coffin. The 8 dragons were being chained up. And now the 8 huge dragons were not petrified. He opened up the tunnel once again and led the soldiers inside before sealing the tunnel. He asked solemnly, "Has General Wei taught you guys about 4 symbols calamity formation?" The 10,000 gods immediately laid out and transformed into 4 symbols calamity formation. They were split into 4 corners under the ship and they were lined up orderly, waiting for inspection. Qin Mu surveyed the surroundings and he let out a sigh of relief. Wei Suifeng had trained these soldiers well, and taught them the 4 symbols calamity formation inside great educational heavenly devil scriptures to them. He came to the center of 4 symbols calamity formation, and he stabbed the pillar where Celestial Venerable Ling had left the poem behind. He said with a low voice, "The 4 deities should be coming soon. If they don't board the ship at this cycle, my arrangements would be all useless. Hope they will come." Suddenly, the ghost ship shook gently and it paused. This ship that has been missing for 20,000 years has finally reappeared again. There was a dull and heavy voice coming from outside and Qin Mu had heard this voice before. It was the voice of North Deity Xian Wu. During Jade Pool meeting, Niu Sanduo wrecked the celestial heavens and he had planned to raise Celestial River up as a weapon, and in the end, Celestial River was suppressed by North Deity Xian Wu. So this meant that the person that had stopped the ghost ship was North Deity Xian Wu. He self-proclaimed he was an ancient god that was born in Celestial River, so it should be very easy to stop the ghost ship sailing on Celestial River. By controlling the Celestial River, it was very easy for him to discover the ghost ship as well. East Deity Qinglong's voice rang out. "Dao Brother Xian Wu, the case where Celestial Empress got attacked is filled with doubtful points. With feathered forest guards vanishing on their return journey, putting these 2 cases together, there is really something fishy about it. We have to investigate. West Deity, South Deity, you guys are finally here. for incomparably powerful and sacred aura spread over and Qin Mu was finally at ease. As I have expected, all 4 deities have arrived. This is the only chance to escape. There can be no mistake. Celestial Empress getting attacked, feathered forest guards quelling the rebellion, feathered forest guards vanishing on Celestial River. This incident shook the world 20,000 years ago. Qin Mu heard a familiar voice and he subconsciously smiled. It was Zhu Keir's voice. Zhu Keir was none other than South deity Zhu Kei. Her voice continued to ring out. There were all kinds of rumors back then, and I heard General Wei Suifeng had first sent someone to the celestial heavens to report about the matters happening in ruins of End. I had also sounded out, and the person Wei Suifeng had sent over reported to Celestial Emperor that Celestial Empress had died in ruins of End. Wei Suifeng had laid her corpse in a coffin and was returning to the celestial heavens. In that case, Celestial Empress' corpse should be on Feathered Forest Guard's ship and vanish along with them. However, Feathered Forest Guards has vanished while Celestial Empress has appeared on the celestial heavens. This really puzzled me. Another woman's voice rang out, and it should be West deity by who? Sister Zhu Kei, it was Great Sun Sovereign that had told you about this incident, am I right? I've also asked Great Sun Sovereign before, and that was what he told me as well. This little bird knows a lot of secrets. Celestial Empress resurrection isn't the only suspicious point. Even that soldier that had come to report to Celestial Emperor had vanished inexplicably. It's like he had completely vaporized from this world and couldn't be found anymore. It's too strange. What was even stranger was that these weird incidents have all happened on Celestial River. Yet Dao brother Xianwu says he doesn't know anything at all. South deity Zhu Kei said indifferently, "How can the incidents that happen on Celestial River be hidden from you? Yet you say you know nothing, Dao brother Xianwu. You are very suspicious." North deity Xianwu snorted. East deity Qingling coughed and said, "Dao brother Xianwu is not that kind of person." It was also Dao brother Xianwu that had informed us now that this ship has reappeared again. He had gathered all of us to witness this. If he had done it, would he have invited us over? Since we are here, let us board this ship and have a look for ourselves. Suddenly, the ghost ship sank down, and it must have been the 4 deities who had broke through the black gas surrounding this ship to board this ghost ship. This ship is strange. West deity cried out in astonishment. There's a kind of power that is trying to invade me. I also feel it. It's a very strange power that wants to control me. It's not controlling, it's seizing our power. Not only is it seizing our power, but it's also even trying to take our corporeal bodies. This power is trying to merge us into one with it. This ship is alive. This is a trap. Boom boom. Explosions rang out and terrifying waves swept through the entire ship. That was the 4 deities trying to break through Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art. East deity transformed into a green dragon and flew out of the ghost ship. His body disappeared into the black gas, and in the next instant, East deity Qinglong suddenly appeared on this ship again. He landed on the ground and quickly moved several steps, revealing a look of astonishment. East deity flew out once again, and he appeared on this ship the next instant. After flying dozens of times, he still appeared on this ship, and this caused the great deity that was in charge of a celestial palace to even be flustered. The other 3 great deities also executed all kinds of methods to try to leave this ship. South deity Zhu Kei's speed was the fastest, and she transformed into a vermilion bird to escape. However, no matter how she flew or how fast she flew, she would always return back on the ship. North deity controlled Celestial River and tried to swing this ship out of Celestial River, but even if the ghost ship was swung out, it would still return back to the surface of the river in the next instant. Meanwhile, West deity controlled her gold chi to try to split the black gas outside the ship into pieces. However, the black gas quickly returned back to its original shape. This ship has something that made the 4 deities felt inconceivable. The ghost ship was a huge life form itself that trapped everything. Even that divine art that was surrounding that ghost ship was also a divine art that they had never seen before. The 4 deities possessed abilities to change the world, and each of them controlled incomparably powerful great Tao. Their Tao cultivation was even incomparably dense, and yet they were helpless against this ship. Worked together to break through the divine art surrounding this ship. The 4 deities made their moves and attacked the black fog outside the ship. Right at this moment, they suddenly felt the power in their divine art flowing away rapidly as though someone had stolen them away. The four deities felt astonished, and they hurriedly executed their magic power to attack furiously. Inside the ship, Four Symbols Calamity Formation was activated, and Qinmu was in charge of the formation to steal the power of the four deities. The power of Four Symbols Calamity Formation became stronger and stronger, and in the center of the formation, apparitions of the green dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise appeared to roar and surged forward. Suddenly, the power of the four deities boomed as four beams burst forth to shine on the pillar where Celestial Venerable Ling had left behind her poem. Flowers are not flowers, fogs are not fogs. Like shadowy appearances coming at midnight, leaving at first light. They come like a spring dream, but for how long? Parting nowhere to be found in the morning clouds. These 37 words gradually gave off light and became brighter and brighter. The four deities don't know that it's me that is stealing their power. Qinmu revealed a smile and he moved. Arms grew out under his armpits and all kinds of runes burst forth from his fingertips as he tapped at the 37 words on the pillar. He activated the divine art hidden in these 37 words bit by bit. The 37 words grew brighter and brighter as they peeled off from the pillar to float in the air. Each word was huge as they laid out in the air. The 37 worlds were formed from countless complicated and fine runes in Qinmu's eyes. Mobilizing the power of Four Symbols Calamity Formation to change the structure to runes, these words were still the same words, but the runes that formed these words were changing. The power that was hidden in these runes were gradually being activated. Now was the most crucial moment, and the smile on Qinmu's face faded away. He couldn't help feeling slightly nervous and started to worry. Suddenly, King Dragon Count's voice rang out on the deck as he shouted, "For deities, stop! You probably don't know, but you are not the only ones on this ship." The four deities suddenly stopped attacking the black gas outside the ship, and Four Symbols Calamity Formation could not steal the power of the four deities anymore. Qinmu's heart jumped and his expression turned dark. "King Dragon Count." North deity Xianwu's voice rang out. "You rebelled and got seized by General Wei. I truly don't know who gave you such guts." Cold sweat broke out on Qinmu's forehead and he shouted, "Soldier, listen to my command. Supply all of the power in Four Symbols Calamity Formation to me." The power stolen by Four Symbols Calamity Formation surged forth and rushed at him. King Dragon Count's voice came from outside as he cried out, "There's someone under the deck. It's the right commander of Feathered Forest Guards. He is controlling Feathered Forest Guards to steal your power. He is trying to get rid of you guys and trapped all of you here. They are all dead, they are ghosts, they cannot be observed." Qinmu gritted his teeth and mobilized all of his cultivation to change the rune structure of the 37 words. When Jehuali heard King Dragon Count's words, he wanted to immediately rush out and smash this old dragon king into pulp. Right at this moment, the sky inside the ghost ship seemed to be melting. Huge hands descended down from the sky to grab at the Feathered Forest Guards, pulling them up. The deck rattled as planks smashed together to form black coffins to seal these soldiers inside. Qinmu shouted, "Maintain the formation, don't mess up the formation." Those soldiers were extremely powerful, and if they worked together to face the enemy, they could suppress experts like King Dragon Count. Even contesting with the four deities was not an issue. However, as the commander, Qinmu had given his command, so these soldiers gave up on defending to maintain the formation. Huge hands continued to grab down to seal even more of the Feathered Forest Guards. Lesser and lesser people were around Qinmu, and every time a person was lost, the other would immediately change the formation to maintain the operation without a single word of grudge. "Big senior brother, you have trained these soldiers of the Feathered Forest Guards to be too outstanding." Qinmu finally adjusted the rune structure of the 37 words, and the 37 words shone brightly. The intense light shone out from the inside of the ship, dazzling even the eyes of the four deities, causing them to cover their eyes. "Soldiers, wait for me." Qinmu bowed to the ground at the remaining soldiers and he said solemnly, "The seal of the four deities can't suppress you guys. After you guys turn into the void, you will break free of the seal. In the future, I will solve Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art completely and rescue you guys out from this state that's neither living nor dead. Make an oath." The faces under the helmets looked at him. Qinmu raised his palm. "I swear with my life." Right at this moment, another few huge hands grabbed down to pull Qinmu, Jehuali and the rest of the soldiers out. Big sister, do you still remember Brother Mu? Qin Mu raised his head and shouted. On the deck, that woman that had grabbed Qin Mu and Jihuali revealed a look of astonishment and cried out, Celestial Venerable Mu? Big sister, I will explain to you in the future. Let go of us now. South deity Zhukair let go and the 37 words exploded with a bang. Light swept out in all directions and the black fog outside the ship was swept away. It felt like an instant had passed, yet it also felt like tens of thousands of years. The light in front of Qin Mu's eyes vanished and the surroundings were dark. He was currently standing on the river surface of Surging River, while village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign were running behind him. They came to his side. Qin Mu looked down the water and a ghost ship was currently sailing in the water. He turned to look at the shore and first ancestor human emperor was standing there and looking over. Village chief was furious and punched him ruthlessly on his head. Take care of us? I'm here to take care of you. Rascal, after mingling outside for a few years, you have gotten quite haughty. Qin Mu rubbed his head and he raised his head to look at the sky where a rope hung down from the moon. He looked upstream of Surging River, and he saw Luo Wushuang flying over on a small boat. Qin Mu revealed a smile and said to village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign, I fulfilled my promise and rescue both of you. Grandpa village chief, dragon-rearing sovereign, long time no see. 680,000 years ago. Lin Xiao faster. A bunch of gods escorted a coffin to the celestial river and one of them shouted in a hurry, Lin Xiao, what are you standing at the side of the river for? Faster, we need to complete what the Empress has ordered us to do. Lin Xiao composed himself and he looked at the ghost ship that had appeared in the light. He hesitated for a moment and followed after the others. He said softly, I seem to have been here before, it's like a nightmare. I had seen the 4 deities boarding the ship and even saw the commander of feathered forest guards. Of course you are dreaming. Get on the ship now. Lin Xiao stood beside the ship and hesitated. If this is done well, the Empress will ensure your descendants achieve meteoric success in their lives. One of the gods said ruthlessly, if you hesitated again, we will have to get rid of you now to guard this secret. Lin Xiao braced himself to walk towards the ship while thinking to himself, just a dream. It's definitely just a dream. 700,000 years ago. Celestial River. A ball of light exploded in the Celestial River. The figures of South Deity Zhukai, East Deity Qinglong, West Deity Baihu and North Deity Xianwu appeared, and they stood on both sides of the river. They saw the light fading away and a ghost ship reconstructing itself in the Celestial River. On the ship, Dragon Count was roaring and trying to break free of the restraints. He tried to escape from the ship. That divine dragon was incomparably strong, yet because feathered forest guards had pierced the chains through his body to suppress him on the ship, he didn't manage to break free from the suppression even when Qin Mu borrowed the power of the 4 deities to break Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art. And now, as this ghost ship reconstructed itself, Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art made a comeback, so when he struggled, he only fused with the ship more. His body merged with the building in front of the deck and now, only his head was left outside. Fear spread through King Dragon Count's eyes and he shouted, Save me! For deities, save me from here! The 4 deities remained standing on both shores and looked at the ship which got shrouded by the black gas again. They were bewildered. Celestial Venerable Mu was on that ship. North Deity Xianwu suddenly looked at South Deity Zhukai and he asked solemnly, Celestial Venerable Mu even called you Big Sister. Should South Deity give us an explanation? What are you looking at me for? South Deity Zhukai chucked and swept her large red clothing up to transform into flames. As she fled away, her laughter came from far away. Like you guys, I don't know anything. The other 3 deities frowned. Other than us who had escaped, I also saw spots of light fading away. They looked like human figures. East Deity Green Dragon said softly. Also, the few officers that I had grabbed from the feathered forest guards had also vanished from my hands. When the light burst forth, they had also vanished from the ship. He looked around, but he didn't see the figures of those few officers from feathered forest guards. He muttered to himself, this ship is too strange. 720 years ago, the fog came invading. General, there's a woman casting spell in the fog. A huge ship sailed into the fog and Wei Suifeng looked at the fog that had suddenly appeared on the celestial river. His heart stirred and he took off the armor on his body. He fetched the lantern he had hung on the mast and wrote on the wall in front of the building at tremendous speed. He wrote down the final sentence. I've come from ruins of End and returned to the past when I met this woman. I visited the wonders of the past and searched for the riddles of history. Now that I've met this woman again, I think I should extinguish the lantern and return. He hung the lantern on the lantern stand and opened up the lantern to blow out the light. The building sank into darkness. The fog gradually turned darker and shrouded the entire ship. Right at this moment, light exploded in the middle of the celestial river and 3 officers of the feathered forest guards suddenly appeared on the water surface. They looked forward in a daze and saw the black gas swallowing up their ship, vanishing from the world. You guys solved my divine art? On the river surface, a woman wearing a leopard print skirt looked at them and revealed a curious look. The 3 officers of the feathered forest guards were still in a daze. You are Celestial Venerable Ling. That woman smiled and said, Looks like my divine art isn't perfect yet. There must still be some flaw. Since you guys are out, don't run around and interfere with the major event. Follow me. You guys can also tell me how you had solved my divine art. She swept her sleeve and brought the 3 men away. On Surging River, village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign were baffled. They had just caught up to Qin Mu and planned to explore the ghost ship with him. They had clearly been around, yet Qin Mu spoke like they had not seen each other for a long time. Furthermore, the current Qin Mu was also slightly strange. In the past, when village chief knocked him on the head, he would hug his head and acted like he was in pain. Yet now he was only rubbing his head. Dragon-rearing sovereign suddenly cried out in astonishment. Sword God, looking at his facial hair. His facial hair is much longer than just now. Village chief looked at Qin Mu and he saw that his mustache and beard had grown a few inches longer. His beard was stubbly, and yet Qin Mu was still clean-shaven earlier. Qin Mu stroked his beard and said calmly, Coming down from the silver rope in the sky would be Prince Qiu Ming from the celestial heavens and his 2 followers. Their abilities are extremely high. Village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign raised their heads, and they indeed saw 3 small figures sliding down the silver rope from the chrysanthemum-like moon. The silver rope grew longer and longer as it headed straight from the ghost ship below. Boarding the ship from underwater would be Ancestral Dragon King, and the half-gods under him. Before village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign could even see the figures of Ancestral Dragon King and the rest clearly, Qin Mu had already pointed to the west and said, One-armed divine knife Lua Wushuang from the spirit elite guards of the celestial heavens will be executing a moon-shaped treasure to break through the black fog outside the ship. In the distance, Feng Chuyun would be bringing Mother Earth primordial sword and carry a stone coffin, transforming into a ball of flames to come forth. In the sky, a star would arrive and Crimson Light Son of God would transform into a beam of light to descend from the sky. Village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign were stunned. They indeed saw Lua Wushuang, who was sitting at the bow of the small boat, executing a moon-shaped treasure to shine down on the ghost ship. The light of the moon was like a pillar which broke through the black gas. On the other side, flames blazed as though a huge sun was flying on the river surface at an extremely fast speed. A rainbow-colored phoenix could be faintly seen among the flames, and under its claw was a wooden sword while on its back was a stone coffin. Meanwhile, in the sky, the star of crimson light had arrived above their heads unbeknownst to them. It was parallel to the ghost ship below, and a beam of red light descended down from the sky. Village chief and dragon-rearing sovereign's minds were muddled. When did my lord change his profession to an oracle? Dragon-rearing sovereign muttered. Qin Mu suddenly said, Village chief, Crimson Light Son of God has helped us on the ship. I had also promised him to rescue him out of the ghost ship. Stop him and don't let him land on the ghost ship. Village chief was confused, but he still pulled out his sword. As he flew out with his sword, thousands of mountains and rivers appeared in the sky above the ghost ship and intercepted Crimson Light Son of God. The red light paused and shone onto the move, sword-treading mountains and rivers. Next, the red light suddenly shrank back and village chief's hand that was holding the sword sank down. Crimson Light Son of God stood on the mountains and rivers that were floating and greeted Qin Mu, as well as First Ancestor who was at the shore. Qin Mu returned his greeting while First Ancestor Human Emperor also returned his greeting from a distance away. Why have Son of Yudu blocked my way? Crimson Light Son of God walked out of the apparition formed by mountains and rivers before asking with a smile. Save Son of God's life. Qinmu smiled. I had promised to save you on the ship, and now that I've saved you after a great deal of effort, would I be wasting my effort if you were to enter the ship again? Crimson Light Son of God was stunned. Village Chief and Dragon-rearing Sovereign also had blank looks on their faces. First Ancestor Human Emperor was afraid that they were in danger and flew over. He looked at Crimson Light Son of God and said indifferently, Son of God, long time no see. Crimson Light Son of God's purple clothes fluttered as he gathered his qi and spirit. As though meeting a dangerous enemy, he said solemnly, Dao friend Qin's cultivation has improved once again. Qinmu frowned and looked at Luo Wushuang's small boat. He saw the small boat stop suddenly and didn't continue to sail towards the ghost ship. It was evident that Shahuali was persuading Luo Wushuang. Crimson Light Son of God coughed and said, Cult Master Qin's words always have deep meanings. You have made me hesitant. However, this ship is related to a huge secret, so I have to investigate. Secret about Celestial Empress? Qinmu asked. Crimson Light Son of God was stunned. Qinmu suddenly shouted, Prince Qiuming! In the sky, the sliver rope hanging down from the moon has already been tied to the mast, and the few people were sliding down the rope. They were about to reach the mast when the youth heard Qinmu's words and stopped. He looked at Qinmu and his eyes lighted up. He said with a smile, Cult Master Qin of Heavenly Saint Cult, Eternal Peace Overlord Body, the three heroes of Eternal Peace's reform. I've just come down from the celestial heavens, and Cult Master Qin is actually able to call out my name. You truly have eyes everywhere. Looks like I've underestimated you. Qinmu laughed and was rather pleased. He said to Village Chief, Village Chief, he says I have eyes everywhere. Village Chief snorted and tilted his head to look at his buttocks. Lucky you don't have a tail, or else it's going to rise to the sky. Qinmu looked at Crimson Light Son of God. I don't have eyes everywhere. I had just met him on the ship. Son of God should believe me now, right? Crimson Light Son of God was even more puzzled. Right at this moment, Luo Wushuang's small boat sailed over. At the bow of the boat, Luo Wushuang stood up. Qinmu smiled in acknowledgement, and the corners of Luo Wushuang's eyes twitched. He asked with a hoarse voice, I'm here to confirm something. What Shahuali had told me is simply too inconceivable. Therefore I'm here to ask High Emperor Overlord Body if that is true. Qinmu nodded his head. It's true. Luo Wushuang muttered to himself for a moment before saying, Many thanks. Qinmu asked in astonishment, Why did Divine Knife Luo trust me so easily? Luo Wushuang said indifferently, High Emperor Overlord Body and Eternal Peace Overlord Body are the same person. Why should I not believe you? Village Chief was even more at a loss, and he felt slightly terrified. When I searched High Emperor's ruins with First Ancestor, we discovered the stone tablet that had recorded the information of High Emperor Overlord Body. Thus I thought there was really the Overlord Body, and even took down a rubbing of the inscriptions. From what Divine Knife Luo Wushuang had said, High Emperor Overlord Body is Mu'er, so the Overlord Body that was recorded is none other than Mu'er. The information of the Overlord Body on the tablet was actually made up by me, and Qinmu had repeated my words when he ran to High Emperor era. Wait a minute. I'm feeling flustered. Let me sort this out properly. He felt that his head was about to explode. If I didn't guess wrongly, the lie I had made has spread all the way to High Emperor era. Crimson Light Son of God's mind was still muddled. He looked at the ghost ship underwater before turning to look at Qinmu. Unable to make a decision. Suddenly light flashed underwater and the ghost ship vanished without a trace. This made Crimson Light Son of God let out a sigh of relief, as though he was relieved of a huge burden. He said with a smile, No matter if what you said is real or not, I don't have to board the ship now. Qinmu laughed and looked around. Ancestral Dragon King and Feng Qiuyun had vanished without a trace. They must have entered the ship. Son of God, let us reminisce by the river. Qinmu invited him. Crimson Light Son of God nodded his head and was about to follow him when Prince Qiuming suddenly chuckled. Overlord Body Qin had called me, delaying me from boarding the ship, and now you are just going to leave? Making an invitation is not as good as a chance encounter. I've come down to the lower bound this time for the three heroes of Eternal Peace's reform. Now that I've encountered you, I can't just let Overlord Body Qin leave just like this. Qin Mu stopped and turned to look at him. Prince Choming said leisurely, "You have experts on Jade Capital beside you, and I also have experts on Jade Capital beside me. How boring is the fight between strong practitioners, so why don't you and I fight to the death on this river? What do you think about this?" Zhehua burst into laughter. Qin Mu took a glance at Zhehuali and smiled warmly at Prince Choming. "On this day next year, I will visit your grave. Overlord Body Qin, how haughty." Prince Choming smiled, but he wasn't angered. He said leisurely, "Why do peasants like you always view yourself so highly and underestimate the sons of the imperial family? My birthright is better than yours as I'm born into the imperial family. My knowledge is also more abundant than yours. My experience is also much more extensive. Whatever numinous sky or emperor's throne techniques can be easily attained by me. And I even have the guidance of the best teachers. What do you have?" Village chief, Crimson Light Son of God, first ancestor human emperor, felt apprehensive. Being born into the imperial family indeed signified having an advantage over the others. This was something Qin Mu couldn't compare with. Even though Qin Mu had the teachings from the elders of disabled elderly village since he was young and was much better off than the other people, that was nothing compared to what Prince Choming had received. Prince Choming was a golden phoenix that was born into his golden nest, while Qin Mu was just a hen dragon born into his straw shack. Village chief took a glance at Qin Mu, who was beside him, and he saw that this kid was unfazed at all. He thought to himself, "It's all that Butcher's fault. Butcher taught him never to show his fear to anyone. Deaf is also to be blamed. Damned old man taught him to pee on the god to break the god in his heart, and as a result, he is afraid of nothing now." Qin Mu said with a smile, "Even though I'm not born into an imperial family, I have 9 people with indomitable spirit teaching me, and the head of disabled elderly village is this elder beside me. He is the village chief of our village. He taught me sword skills. He taught me how to conduct myself." Village chief was moved and he blushed as he thought to himself, "Ehem, I did indeed taught him how to conduct himself. That is why he is so humble and polite, always modest and exercising forbearance. His demeanor is rather like mine." Prince Choming laughed loudly and placed his arms behind his back. He raised his head to look at the bright moon in the sky, and the bright moon was wrinkled. He sighed and said, "Teach you how to conduct yourself? What the use of knowing how to conduct yourself? The imperial family is the most ruthless. There are numerous princes in the celestial heavens, and if you want to stand out from the rest, you have to experience bloodbaths. Which among those who had rise above others would never experience the struggles of life and death before? When I was 12, I was sent to the cemetery of the Skunda devil to fight him. 50 of us went in and only I lived to come out. What had you experienced when you were 12? Qin Mu thought about it, but he wasn't too willing to say. Village chief reminded him. "Muir, have you forgotten? Old woman C bought some hen dragons back then and you fought with the hen dragons daily. You always got beaten up by them." Qin Mu's face was black like iron. Prince Choming laughed once again and shook his head. "My birthright is better than yours. I've learned more than you. My experiences are also more extensive. Furthermore, I'm even more hardworking than you. Yet you want to visit my grave, what a joke." Qin Mu looked at him seriously and said, "But killing you is really not a trouble for me. Prince, you can't even be compared to that hen dragon I had encountered last time. To kill that hen dragon, I have to work together with brother Zhehuali. To kill you, I just need one move." Zhehuali forced back his laughter and the demon knife behind him curved its eye. It was a pity it couldn't make any sound. Prince Choming took a glance at him and wore a faint smile on the corner of his lips. "Zhehuali, you are originally a talent of spirit elite guards. Never would I expect you to become so short-sighted after coming down to the lower bound. Overlord Body Qin, the reason why I'm telling you so much is not to brag about myself, they are just facts." He looked at Qin Mu and smiled faintly. "You are referred to as the Overlord Body by the peasants of the lower bound, what a joke. One can well imagine how short-sighted these lowly races of the lower bound were. If you are the Overlord Body, what body would I who was born into the imperial family be? Do you know why do I have to kill you first after coming down to the lower bound on an order?" Qin Mu shook his head. "I don't. I've come down to kill the 3 heroes of Eternal Peace's reform and you are the first in place. It is because you have the title of the Overlord Body." Prince Qiuming looked leisurely at the night scenery of surging river and said calmly, "Only by killing you, one of the three heroes of eternal peace, is reform. Would these peasants know the awe of the heavens, only then would they know fear. Only then would they kneel to the ground and submit to us, to accept their current circumstances and forget about further thoughts to reform or whatnot. This is why you must be rid of first." Qin Mu asked curiously, "So who is the second person you want to get rid of?" "Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor Zhang Baigui." Prince Qiuming said righteously. Zhang Baigui is being honored as the saint that appears once every 500 years. Killing him would be very shocking. This would let the foolish people of the lower bound know that their so-called saint is nothing in the eyes of the celestial heavens, that he could be crushed easily. Lastly, I will kill Emperor Yanfeng. I want him to kneel down and die, of course. He must kneel down in front of all these peasants and wait for his death. His expression turned cold. Merely the bumpkin emperor of a small country, yet he doesn't know the grace of heaven. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I would naturally have to destroy all of his hopes and make him kneel to wait for his death. Well said. The two visitors from the celestial heavens behind him clapped their hands and praised. This is what should be done to show the awe of the heavens. Prince is wise and strong. To let Prince handle this small matter of eternal peace empire is truly a waste of your talents. Prince Qiuming was full of smiles and looked at Qin Mu. Overlord Body Qin, do you dare to accept the battle? Qin Mu was about to agree when village chief said nervously, "Mu, there's no need to agree. We have the advantage in numbers and we also have Crimson Light Son of God and First Ancestor. We can definitely win them. Why put yourself in danger and fight to the death with him?" Prince Qiuming said leisurely. "Behind me are two experts on Jade Capital Realm, and they are in charge of my safety, as well as assisting me to quell the chaos in eternal peace. Divine Knife Luo of Spirit Elite Guards is also a subordinate of the celestial heavens. You should know his abilities, I don't have to elaborate. You guys merely have two strong practitioners on Jade Capital City, while I have one more than you." Village chief frowned. First Ancestor also frowned and looked at Luo Wushuang. Luo Wushuang was silent and he looked suspiciously at Shahuali. Shahuali pretended not to see and kept his gaze on Qin Mu. Qin Mu said with a smile, "Village chief, don't worry, merely a prince from the celestial heavens. It's not like I have never killed one before. I'll be right back." Village chief said softly, "Play it safe. Test what abilities does he has first, don't go with your killing blow right away. After you see through his abilities, just act accordingly." Qin Mu nodded and raised his hand. "Prince Qiuming, please." Prince Qiuming's aura rose drastically and his aura burst forth. His qi and blood were like an iron blood flag in the sky, floating in the wind of the river. Shahuali was astonished. On the ghost ship, Prince Qiuming had used 3 different kinds of Emperor's Throne techniques to defeat him, but he had not used this iron blood flag technique before. Back then, Qin Mu had killed Prince Qiuming in a few moves because Prince Qiuming and Shahuali had fought, revealing his techniques and divine arts. Yet now that Prince Qiuming wasn't using the 3 kinds of Emperor's Throne techniques, Shahuali couldn't help worrying for Qin Mu. First Ancestor Human Emperor was astonished and said softly, "The Emperor's Throne techniques of Western Heaven Gold Deity, Blood Rust Flag Scripture." Village Chief hurriedly asked, "Is it powerful?" The corners of First Ancestor Human Emperor's eyes twitched and his voice was slightly hoarse. Martial Arts Heavenly Teacher had lost under this technique and was defeated by Western Heaven Gold Deity. Village Chief's heart sank and transferred his voice to First Ancestor. "If Muir is defeat, you shall block down the 2 experts from the celestial heavens. I will save Muir." First Ancestor Human Emperor nodded his head. Just as they finished their discussion, Prince Qiuming had already made his move. Blood dyed the sky and moonlight filled the sky. The moonlight shone on the rusted flag. Prince Qiuming made a move and the flow of surging river was nearly stopped. The surging river water rose into the sky and stood upright like a cliff. Prince Qiuming slashed forward and the rusted flag covered the sky to cover everyone's vision. Countless rusted swords inside this huge flag flew out and gathered into a stream which drowned out Qin Mu. Right at this moment, a beam of sword light flew out to break through the countless rusted swords, reaching Prince Qiuming's forehead in an instant. Prince Qiuming tilted his head and the sword light flew past his cheek. Right at this moment, he saw a light flickering behind him and Qin Mu's figure had already appeared. Qin Mu stretched out his hand to grab the sword light. Prince Qiuming was astonished, and the huge flag in the sky covered down to sweep him away as he escaped through the sky. Right as the huge flag covered down, Qin Mu raised his sword and stabbed into the huge flag. That sword light transformed into countless flying swords that got swept away by the huge flag as well. The huge flag that got swept up rattled and moved 100 miles instantly. Its speed was so fast that the naked eye couldn't catch anything. Qin Mu's teleportation divine art was already fast enough, and the speed of Prince Qiuming's blood rust flag scripture was actually not any slower. This caused everyone on the river to exclaim in admiration. As expected of an emperor's throne technique, when that rusted flag landed, it immediately opened up with a whoosh, and countless flying swords flew out from the rusted flag like incomparably tiny silver fish. They flew back to Qin Mu. Qin Mu raised his hand and sounds of collision rang out continuously. Those tiny flying swords collided and fused with one another, transforming into a treasure sword in his hand. Qin Mu rubbed his hands, and the treasure sword got rubbed into sword pellet, which he stuffed back into his taotai sack. He then took out a stick of incense from his taotai sack and gently blew on it. The incense was lighted up, and the smell of incense rose upwards in spirals as it flew towards that flag. On the river surface 100 miles away, blood and shattered bones poured out continuously from the rusted flag and dyed the river red. That stick of incense flew over and stabbed in the hole of the flag. Prince Qiuming, now you know what is called the Overlord body, right? Qin Mu's voice rang out. Please accept this incense first. On this day next year, I'll visit your grave again. The huge flag slowly sank into the river and got swept away. Silence filled the river, and no one dared to speak. The atmosphere was stifling. Village chief, first ancestor, and the others had not come back to their senses. The other two visitors from the celestial heavens also haven't come back to their senses. Just one move. Shahuali sighed. He knew that this would be the conclusion, so he was the calmest one instead. He thought to himself. He had only used one move. On the ship, he had even used 4 to 5 moves. Luo Wushuang looked at him and said softly, Shahuali, you knew this would happen long ago. Why didn't you say anything? Shahuali didn't reply him. You killed the prince. Suddenly, the two visitors from the celestial heavens said with a trembling voice, You killed Prince Qiuming. Qin Mu replied politely, Seniors, if I don't kill him, am I going to let him kill me? Both of you don't have to look for him in Yudu or Mingdu, you won't find him. I usually get rid of my enemies completely, so Prince Qiuming's soul has already been destroyed. Both of the gods from the celestial heavens screeched, and their divine might burst forth as they pounced on Qin Mu. First ancestor human emperor and crimson light son of God burst out at the same time to block both of them on the light and the right. Luo Wushuang's gaze twinkled, and a soft sound came from the sheath behind him. The divine knife was about to be unsheathed. Right at this moment, Qin Mu undid the willow leaf on the heart of his brows, and he shouted angrily, Brother, it's time to kill. Incomparably terrifying aura burst forth from his body, and Luo Wushuang's heart shook violently. His divine knife returned back to its sheath, and the boat under his feet immediately changed direction as he rushed towards the river. Shahuali suddenly jumped down from the boat. Luo Wushuang couldn't care about escaping for his life and immediately stopped the boat. He shouted, Shahuali, get up now. Teacher Luo. Shahuali knelt down on the river surface and bowed. From today onwards, Teacher Luo will not have a disciple such as me. I hereby bow and thank you, teacher, for your grace. In the future, I might have to face divine knife. Luo Wushuang was stunned. He suddenly pulled out his divine knife and sliced off his sleeve to throw it into the river. The boat left in a hurry. Luo Wushuang's small boat left into the distance, and incomparably terrifying Yudu Devil Chi came from the river surface behind him. Even if he didn't turn back to look, he could also imagine that terrifying sight that was behind him. It was like the most terrifying and malicious devil god that was crawling out from another world, tearing apart everything in this world with his boundless strength, swallowing everything that it could eat. About Son of Yudu, Shahuali did not hide this information from him, which was why Luo Wushuang immediately retreated when he felt a bad feeling. Teacher Luo, Shahuali. On the ship, a disciple asked carefully. Luo Wushuang's face was as calm as still water. He looked at his empty sleeve, and the pain of his severed arm came searing back again. The pain reached into the depths of his heart. 40,000 years ago, High Emperor Overlord Body severed one of my arm and today, he has severed my arm again. Luo Wushuang closed his eyes and suddenly opened them again. He said softly, Shahuali had walked out his own path on this path. He will not be walking with us instead. He will be running in the opposite direction. I had thought that he was my right arm and never did I expect. From today onwards you have to be careful when meeting him. You will have to fight to the death and not spare his life. He has entered the path with the knife Dao and has very strong abilities. His future achievements would be extraordinary. The turbulence on the river surface calmed down. Crimson Light Son of God, first ancestor human emperor and village chief were still slightly terrified. The scene earlier was too frightening and made them shuddered. The river was dyed red and the two visitors from the celestial heavens had died so fast that it was out of their expectations. It was still fine for Qin Mu as he took out a willow leaf to paste on the heart of his brows. He ran over to the side of the river to check on the progress of human Emperor Qikong and human Emperor Yishan. Shahuali, what has happened on the ship, is it real? Village chief asked. Shahuali nodded his head and he described everything that had happened on the ghost ship. Everyone had an astonished expression and Crimson Light Son of God felt a lingering fear. He glanced down the river and the ghost ship had already vanished without a trace. Ancestral Dragon King and Feng Chuyan entered the ghost ship. Their life and death are now unknown. Village chief felt a warmth spreading in his heart. Mua risked his life to save me, and he has managed to solve something that even the four deities couldn't. He has really grown up and he is also very confident. About the truth of the Overlord body, it already not that important anymore. He wanted to tell First Ancestor that he had created the legend of an Overlord body, but he thought about it and felt that he would end up getting beaten up if he spoke the truth. Not only would the past human emperors beat him, but First Ancestor might also be unable to hold himself back as well. Thus he could only keep it to himself. They came to the riverside. To the past human emperors, Qin Mu and the rest had gone to the heart of the river to have a big fight for a short while. Yet to Qin Mu, he had been away for a month and more on the ship. After daybreak, human Emperor Qikong and human Emperor Yishan sensed the power of the Celestial River to open up the Celestial River Divine Treasure. This made everyone excited. Since they had succeeded, this meant that Celestial River Divine Treasure could replace Divine Bridge Divine Treasure to become the 7th Divine Treasure. However, the process to replace the Divine Treasure was probably going to be very long. Cult Master Qin, this Celestial River Divine Treasure, it's created by you? Shahuali checked on the Celestial River Divine Treasure that both human emperors had opened up and were astonished. Qin Mu was very pleased and said with a smile, I had made a bet with Su Shanghua to see which one of us is able to open up the new 7th Divine Treasure first. Whoever wins would be the true Overlord body, whoever that loses would be the beta. At first, I didn't have the confidence in beating him, but I didn't expect Mother Earth, who gave me an Earth Aeon Dao fruit. That allowed me to break through life and death wall and enter life and death realm instantly. Su Shanghua has extremely high talents and he will be able to think of what I could think. However, he lost to me in cultivation, and so I had managed to open up Celestial River Divine Treasure ahead of him. Shahuali was fascinated and he said, to have such a Dao friend to continuously whip yourself, it's truly a fortunate thing. He remained behind to comprehend Celestial River Divine Treasure, while Qin Mu packed up to head to the other side of the Celestial River. Since Celestial River Divine Treasure could be opened up, he didn't have to handle the rest of the matters. Eternal Peace Empire would spread out this divine treasure, and Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor would also create a technique to seal Southern Heavenly Gate, allowing the gods of Eternal Peace Empire to cultivate the Celestial River Divine Treasure as well. In the river, Qin Mu brought the Dragon Qilan to sit on Dragon Rearing Sovereign's head. Dragon Rearing Sovereign controlled the clouds and flew towards 100 Years Mountain on the opposite end. In the river, the Sapphire Blue Flood Dragon King appeared, and he followed them all the way to the other shore. His speed was extremely fast too. After yesterday's battle, Dragon Rearing Sovereign lifted his head up high, and could even be said to be throwing his weight around. He wanted all of the Dragon Kings and half-gods in the river to know that he had a powerful lord. The sun rose in the east and the sun rays scattered down. Qin Mu looked at the east and he saw the sun looking as though it had jumped out from the water of the Celestial River. The surface of the river shimmered with gold ripples as though golden snakes were dancing. Qin Mu and the dragon Qilin cheered and said that it looked beautiful. Next, Qin Mu's face turned dark as he saw that sun rising up from the east becoming warped like an ugly red date. It was indescribably detestable. Ever since Primordial Realm had reappeared, the sky map that stretched for 10,000 miles in the sky could no longer cover eternal peace. The gods maintaining the operation of the astronomical phenomenons were also getting lazier day by day. They also couldn't be blamed. The sky map was 100,000 miles high and 1,000 yards thick. Now that Primordial Realm has resurfaced, there were many majestic mountains that were even taller than the sky, pushing onto the sky map up and down unevenly. This caused the operation of the stars to become messy and made the gods of the celestial heavens flustered. Qin Mu pulled back his gaze and looked at it no more. He suddenly saw the river water churning and an elder with a dragon head slowly rose up from the river with his cane. He stood on the water surface and behind him were numerous dragon sons and dragon descendants of his. They blocked their way. Divine rays soared into the sky and the divine light lingered on the river. Two of the female dragon transformed into the form of humans. One of the female dragons carried all kinds of shining treasures, while the other female dragon carried teas and snacks. Qin Mu stopped dragon rearing sovereign and said, "Why has Elder blocked my path?" That old dragon king hurriedly greeted him. Little Dragon is the dragon king of this section of Celestial River. Ever since Dragon Han's Celestial Heavens until now, I have guarded this place for 1,000,000 years, ensuring the operation of Celestial River. Yesterday night I had seen High God's divine might, and since High God is passing by here today, I'm here to offer my meager gifts. High God. Qin Mu laughed loudly and shook his head. I'm still not a High God. I'm merely a divine arts practitioner that had opened up Celestial River divine treasure. I'm still a distance away from the God realm. That old dragon king agreed with whatever Qin Mu said and replied, High God must be fatigued, so I'm here specially to offer my meager gifts. These are all produce of Celestial River. Qin Mu jumped down from dragon rearing sovereign's back and landed on the water surface. That old dragon waved his hand and there were immediately shrimp soldiers and crab generals going forward to control the water with their magic power, constructing a palace on the water to let Qin Mu be seated. This palace on the river was formed by the water of the Celestial River, and the tables and chairs were all carved by white jade. Sitting inside, one couldn't felt the harsh sun and cold wind, but they could still see the scenery outside. Qin Mu sat down and that old dragon king accompanied him. Those two female dragons hurriedly went forward to offer up the treasures and tea. Qin Mu drank the tea and took a look at the treasure. Dragon rearing sovereign, keep them first. Dragon rearing sovereign was delighted and hurriedly kept the treasures of all kinds. Qin Mu took a deep look at the old dragon king in front of him and said, I've already conferred the title of Celestial River Dragon King to Dragon Rearing Sovereign. Follow him from today onwards and I'll ensure your descendants will live peacefully here. That old dragon hesitated and said carefully, High God, Dragon Rearing Sovereign is wise and strong but his bloodline isn't pure. Qin Mu laughed and said with a smile, If bloodline had any use, how would I have killed Prince Cho Ming with a sword? If bloodline had any use, why would Mother Earth had been defeated? That old dragon king didn't dare to speak. Since you have guarded this place for generations, I won't give you any trouble. This section of Celestial River will still be managed by your family. I can smooth wind and rain for this area. You can cause flood willfully to cause harm to the people on both sides of the river. You can enjoy their offerings but you are not to seize them and enslave them. Qin Mu put down his teacup and walked out of this palace on the water. Dragon Rearing Sovereign will make the Pact of Little Earth count with you, so you can't rebel. I've drank the tea and accept the gift, you can fall back now. After crossing the river, Dragon Rearing Sovereign will come to look for you. That old dragon king acknowledged his words and the palace on the water dispersed. The old dragon king also vanished with his descendants. Pact of Little Earth count? Dragon Rearing Sovereign blinked his eyes and was delighted. He exclaimed to himself, Pact of Little Earth count is even fiercer than Pact of Earth count. I might really become Celestial River Dragon King. He was delighted and carried Qin Mu and the dragon Qilin to continue forward. Not long later, another dragon king brought all kinds of treasures to appear on the river surface, offering fragrant tea. Qin Mu drank the tea and said the same things. He continued forward. On the journey, dragonkinds continuously appeared on the river and offered up treasures. The battle last night was too big of a commotion. The dragon kings upstream and downstream hurried over in every section of their journey. A dragon king would welcome them, and they were extremely polite. Qinmu walked and stopped, drinking tea until he was full. When he reached the other shore of Celestial River, it was already in the afternoon. The dragon Qilin whispered and said, "Cult Master Qin, because of the disappearance of Ancestral Dragon King, these dragon kings have no more backbone, so they had come to submit with fake intentions. When Mother Earth gives her command, these dragon kings would all rebel. Even though dragon-rearing sovereign's abilities aren't weak, he still can't suppress Celestial River. We need to invite Elder Qing Huang from the Dragon Village to suppress them." Dragon-rearing sovereign was rather displeased, but what the dragon Qilin said was also facts. Elder Qing Huang was the number 2 heavenly king of founding Emperor Celestial Heavens, and his abilities were merely second to the number 1 heavenly king Diue. He surpassed him by leaps and bounds. Elder Qing Huang's abilities were even stronger than Ancestral Dragon King, so he was the most suitable to suppress Celestial River. Even if Elder Qing Huang comes out of the mountain, he won't be able to suppress this river. Qinmu shook his head and said, "As long as Mother Earth gives her command, these dragon kings and half-gods that have submitted to us will rebel." None of them had submitted to us willingly. The dragon Qilin was at a loss and he asked, "In that case, why did Cult Master still accept the surrender of all these dragon kings? When these dragon kings rebel and control the water of Celestial River to flood eternal peace, it would be more than enough to turn eternal peace into an underwater empire. They would turn countless people into food for the fishes and prawns." Qinmu turned back to look at the great waves surging on the river surface and he said leisurely, "I know. I'm only waiting for Mother Earth's command." The dragon Qilin and dragon-rearing sovereign were stunned. When Mother Earth gives her command, these dragon kings and half-gods would rebel. As long as they rebel, they would be going against the Pact of Little Earth Count. Qinmu's face turned dark. If they don't rebel, nothing will happen. If they rebel, in just one night, countless dragon corpses would float on the river surface of this celestial river. Mother Earth's greatest threat to eternal peace will hereby dissolve, and there would be no more danger from the celestial river. From then on, the Pact of Little Earth Count will shake the world with its awe. Dragon-rearing sovereign shuddered and didn't dare to think of that sight. In Qin land, the big-headed baby was excited and he waited at the stone table, ready for his meal. Qinmu looked at the 100 Years mountain in front of him and said, "Dragon-rearing sovereign, go back and sign the Pact of Little Earth Count with them. For the half-gods in Celestial River, as long as they have the abilities on the God Realm, they have to sign the Pact of Little Earth Count. Go, as you command." Dragon-rearing sovereign sank into the water and disappeared. The dark aura on Qinmu's face vanished as he looked at God Baishi on the small dirt mound and he said with a smile, "God Baishi, I'm here to see you." God Baishi hurriedly greeted and didn't dare to throw any tantrum. However, he still has some grievances. "My lord, was that dragon-rearing sovereign? He is fortunate now that Surging River has become so big. My lord, do you think those mountains beside me are tall?" Qinmu raised his head and saw the mountain range beside 100 Years Mountain stretching for nearly 10,000 miles with mountain peaks that were tall and elegant. There were numerous shrines and temples on the mountain, and there were all kinds of rare strange beasts appearing in the mountains. There was also huge deer that soared on the clouds to fly to and fro. Qinmu smiled warmly and said leisurely, "From today onwards, this mountain shall change its name to 100 Years Mountain. What do you think about that?" God Baishi was surprised and delighted, but he shook his head afterward. "My lord doesn't know about the background of this Sunset Glow Mountain. There is a kingdom of gods that stretches over 10,000 miles and in it are numerous gods. How would they listen to my lord? Taking down this mountain range is impossibly difficult." Qinmu came to Deer County on the side. He wrote a letter and handed it over to God Baishi. "Take my invitation and pay a visit to the mountain god of this mountain. Tell them I will be visiting tomorrow. The mountain god of this mountain would definitely have seen my battle on the mountain yesterday night. He won't cause you trouble once he sees my invitation." Baishi was about to go when they heard a bright and clear voice coming from outside the city. "Sunset Glow Mountain 72 Caves Mountain Gods has come forward to pay our respects to Eternal Peace High God Overlord Body Qin. Qin Mu was astonished and he said with a smile, "These mountain gods are fast. They are no inferior to those dragon kings of the celestial river. Let them in." God Baishi immediately came out of the city to welcome them. After a moment, he saw mountain gods from various mountains coming over to pay their respects with their followers. They had also brought a dazzling lineup of treasures that glowed brightly. Some of these mountain gods grew deer's horns, some of them grew tigers' heads, and some also had branches on their heads. Their appearances and races were different. Qin Mu knew that they were only trying to stall and welcomed them with a smile. He got God Baishi accept the present and said, "Mountain gods have guarded the mountains of eternal peace and credit for guarding the empire. As long as you aren't disloyal, I won't treat you badly. I plan to change this mountain's name to 100 Years Mountain and establish Honored God Baishi as the main god of Sunset Glow 72 Peaks. What do you guys think about this?" Sunset Glow Mountain 72 Caves mountain gods looked at one another in dismay and gave off looks of disdain at him. They looked down on him. One of the mountain gods walked out of the ranks and said, "Sir Qin has come from afar, so you might not know we, the Sunset Glow Mountain 72 Caves mountain gods, actually have a lord. Sunset Glow Mountain is under the jurisdiction of Clear Sky Heaven. Back then when Primordial Realm was sealed, Sunset Glow Mountain was sealed along with Clear Sky Heaven. In the seal, Clear Sky Heaven was still the landlord of Sunset Glow Mountain. We, these mountain gods, are merely looking after the land for our landlord. We usually collect rent from the kingdom of gods in the mountain and take care of the people's livelihood." Another deer-horned mountain god said politely, "We, the mountain gods of the 72 Caves, had long signed the Pact of Earth Count with Clear Sky Heaven back during High Emperor era, so we can't go against it. May Overlord Body Qin please forgive us. If we go against the pact, we will die immediately." Qin Mu frowned slightly. Since these mountain gods had signed a Pact of Earth Count with Clear Sky Heaven, that would be a very thorny problem. "Where is Clear Sky Heaven at?" he asked. Numerous mountain gods raised their hands at the sky and Qin Mu raised his head up to take a look. In the sky above Sunset Glow Mountain, there was a green light like a long rainbow stretching 10,000 miles. The light floated above the mountain without moving. The length of that green light was terrifying and one couldn't tell that it was a heaven if they looked from afar. Since Sunset Glow Mountain has an owner and you guys have signed the Pact of Earth Count, it wouldn't be good to force you guys. Qin Mu muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "In that case, I can only kill you guys." The mountain gods of the 72 Caves changed their expressions drastically, and at this moment, a burst of drawn-out laughter came from the sky as a young Taoist in green descended down from the sky while stepping on the green light. "The empire is small, but it isn't inferior. The power is small, but it doesn't fear the strong. Rude and ridiculing the big neighbors, greedy and stubborn yet don't know diplomacy, may die out. I heard there are 3 heroes in Eternal Peace Empire's reform. First is Emperor Yanfeng, who has outstanding abilities and grand vision, an emperor for eternity. Second one is Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, who has his mind over the world, opening up new lands, having the talent that's not from this world. Third one is Overlord Body Qin Mu, Heavenly Saint Cult Master, pushing forward the path of the saint by yourself. I have heard the reputation of the 3 of you, and now that I've met Overlord Body Qin today, only then do I know it hard to live up to your great reputation." Qin Mu laughed loudly and he stood up to say loudly, "Brother's rebuke is right. May I know where is brother from?" That youth in green landed in the city and greeted Qin Mu. "From Clear Sky Heaven. I am Yu Chan from Clear Sky Heaven. Nice to meet you, Heavenly Saint Cult Master. My Clear Sky Heaven is a branch of Tao sect. Clear Sky sect from back then had 24 kingdoms of gods under our jurisdiction, and this Sunset Glow Mountain is one of them." Qin Mu instantly had a bad expression as he thought to himself, "This is Tao Master Lin Xian's property. It wouldn't be good for me to seize it now." He was slightly at ease. The reason why he had decided to seize Sunset Glow Mountain was because he was afraid of Mother Earth giving the command to slaughter the people of Eternal Peace. Thus he had planned to seize Sunset Glow Mountain. Since Sunset Glow Mountain was a property of Tao sect, things would be simpler. Honored God Baishi would just have to suffer a little and continue being a mountain god on the 100-year small mountain. That youth in green had a horsetail whisk on the corner of his elbow and said, "May I ask Overlord Body Qin, are you representing Heavenly Saint Cult coming here, or are you representing Eternal Peace Empire?" Qin Mu was puzzled. Yuchan said. If you are representing Heavenly Saint Cult, that would be a fight of Confucian orthodoxy. My Clear Sky Heaven is Clear Sky Sect, so we will fight with cult teachings, fight with spells and divine arts. If you are representing Eternal Peace Empire, my Clear Sky Heaven will gather the soldiers from our 24 kingdoms of gods, laying out our soldiers in formations to have the two armies fight in front of the formations. Qin Mu yawned and smiled. Senior brother Yuchan, Dao Sect is also an eternal peace. Dao Sect's Dao Master Lin Xian is my bosom buddy. Since we are one big family, there will be no need for war. Yuchan shook his head and said, Dao Sect of the lower bound is not orthodox. Dao Sect in the celestial heavens and then the orthodox Dao Sect. Eternal Peace Empire's Dao Sect can't even be considered a branch. It is merely built by those wandering disciples stranded from the orthodox Dao Sect. Qin Mu's heart stirred and he asked, since you guys don't recognize Dao Master Lin Xian, do you recognize Dao Ancestor of Dao Sect? Yuchan said solemnly, Dao Ancestor is the beginning of Dao Sect. He is the ancestor of all Dao, of course we have to recognize him. Is Dao Ancestor in Clear Sky Heaven? Qin Mu asked. Yuchan shook his head and he was slightly impatient. So does Overlord Body Qin wants to fight or make peace? Qin Mu muttered to himself and shook his head with a smile. You as a Taoist is too hot-tempered. Dao Sect cultivates one's moral character and spiritual cultivation. I don't know where have all your cultivation gone to? Is Dao Ancestor in Clear Sky Heaven? Yuchan frowned and was about to speak when auspicious cloud soared in the sky. In the cloud was a white dragon that moving its body as it flew past. The cloud suddenly stopped and Taoist Lin Xian's voice came from the back of the dragon. He cried out in astonishment. Cult Master Qin, why are you here? The cloud floated down and landed in the city before dispersing. Dao Master Lin Xian and Taoist Cha jumped down from the back of the dragon. Lin Xian grabbed the tail of that dragon and gave it shake. The white dragon transformed into a horsetail whisk that he laid gently on the corner of his elbow. Taoist Cha looked at the 72 mountain gods before looking at Yuchan. He whispered and asked, another fight? Qin Mu shook his head gently and said, not a fight, it's a discussion. This Taoist here is from your Dao Sect's Clear Sky Sect. These mountain gods are also helping your Dao Sect's Clear Sky Sect to look after their property. Dao Master Lin, I think the tax that Eternal Peace Empire had implemented on your Dao Sect is too low. One branch of Dao Sect has 24 kingdoms of gods. How terrifying. Dao Master Lin Xian had a grim expression and he said softly, the purpose of my visit is also because I have heard that a certain Clear Sky Sect is a branch of Dao Sect. Therefore I want to take a look. Taoist Cha examined Yuchan and asked bewilderedly, is Clear Sky Heaven really a branch of Dao Sect? Yuchan shook his head and said, my Clear Sky Heaven is a branch of Dao Sect, but it's not the branch of that Dao Sect of yours. Your Dao Sect in Eternal Peace is not the true Dao Sect. The true Dao Sect is in the celestial heavens. Eternal Peace's Dao Sect is fake. Dao Master Lin Xian looked down at his heart and said, true or fake, they are all Dao Sect. I wonder if I can head to Clear Sky Heaven and pay a visit to the seniors of Dao Sect? I have yet to pay my respects to Dao Ancestor, so I would like to meet him as well. Yuchan hesitated for a moment. It's fine for you to go, but don't get carried away by your wishful thinking. Your Dao Sect in Eternal Peace is nothing at all. You don't have the true teachings or even any foundation at all. Furthermore, Dao Ancestor is also not in Clear Sky Heaven. I heard he is in the celestial heavens. Taoist Cha sneered and said, we are nothing at all? Little Taoist, when I started cultivating with the old Taoist in my early years, you weren't even born. You should at least know that our Dao Sect also had our glory during Founding Emperor era. Yuchan shook his head and said, Dao Sect of Founding Emperor era was fake to begin with. It was established by the abandoned disciples of Dao Sect. It isn't orthodox. Taoist Cha laughed from anger, and he was about to retort when Dao Master Lin Xian shook his head. There's no need to quarrel what's real and fake with him. Dao is real, so Dao Sect can't be fake. Taoist Cha was stunned for a moment before he praised. Dao Master is broad-minded. No wonder you can be Dao Master. Dao Master took leave from Qin Mu and Qin Mu hurriedly said, I am also old friends with Dao Ancestor. Wait a moment for me. I'll get someone to call my brother you over. I'll go to Clear Sky Heaven with you. My reputation is widely known and I have a big face with me around. They won't cause any trouble for you. Tao Master Lin Xian grumbled internally while Taoist Cha also kept throwing him glances, signaling him to leave immediately. However, Lin Xian was still Tao Master and he didn't have a thick face after all. Moreover, his relationship with Qin Mu was also rather good, so he didn't know what to do. Heavenly Saint Cult Master, nicknamed Demolisher Qin, demolishing everything wherever he goes. He is also called Disaster Qin, wherever he goes disaster follows. He is also called Beater Qin, beating people up wherever he goes. Tao Master Lin Xian pondered hard. How should I reject him? He has such a thick face, I probably can't reject him. With a face full of smiles, Qin Mu got God Bai Shi to instruct dragon-rearing sovereign to ferry Celestial Venerable Yu, who was on the other shore over. God Bai Shi hurried over and after an hour, dragon-rearing sovereign carried Celestial Venerable Yu and the Water Qilin over to Deer County. Qin Mu's spirit was greatly aroused and he said softly to Celestial Venerable Yu, I shall bring you to meet an old friend. That old Taoist received benefits from you and me in his early years. It's time for us to reap the interest. Celestial Venerable Yu was at a loss. Old friend. Qin Mu hurried them and said, Tao Master and also Senior Brother Yu Chan, let us go. Let us quickly go to clear sky heaven. The sky is almost dark. Taoist Yu Chan also frowned. Why is this Overlord Body Qin acting so familiar? As they were about to leave, God Bai Shi smiled apologetically and asked, My lord, about 100 Years Mountain. Qin Mu gave it some thought and said, Sunset Glow Mountain is Dao Sec's property. You will just have to suffer a little and stay here temporarily. If you are starving, get Dragon Rearing Sovereign to give you some food to get by. Dragon Rearing Sovereign is prospering. He is Celestial River Dragon King now. God Bai Shi wanted to cry, but he had no tears. He looked at Dragon Rearing Sovereign and saw Dragon Rearing Sovereign looking rather pleased. Qin Mu sat on the Dragon Qilin's back and sacred flames burst out under the Dragon Qilin's feet. Stepping on fire clouds, he followed after Taoist Yu Chan, Tao Master Lin Xian and the rest. Beside him, Celestial Venerable Yu sat on the Water Qilin and was hesitating for a moment. He finally made a decision and asked, Brother, does this old friend knows about my birth? I know I'm picked up, but I want to know where my biological parents are. Qin Mu pondered and said, He should know. Even though he is younger than you, he isn't much younger. In terms of age, he is also considered one of the oldest among the human race, merely younger than the 7 Celestial Venerables. He should know a lot of things. Celestial Venerable Yu's spirit was roused. They flew into the green light and the green light in front of their eyes faded away. In front of their eyes was clear sky heaven, and when Qin Mu turned back to look, the sun was already setting. This sun hung up high in the sky. He looked up at the sky, and the sun in the sky wasn't the true sun. It was created by the Taoists here, and there were numerous Taoists that could be seen flying in and out from that sun. Taoist Lin, your Tao Sec's branch has extremely high attainments in algebra. Qin Mu said to Tao Master Lin Xian. Tao Master Lin Xian was very happy and he said with a smile, Everything in this world can be described with algebra, and since my Tao sect is specialized in the Tao of algebra, we naturally have quite the attainments. His mood was much more optimistic. He looked around and nodded his head repeatedly. There were numerous mountains and rivers in the terrains, however this place was too big. It was equivalent to Eternal Peace Empire in the past, stretching 100,000 miles in radius. Even if the place was small, it still contained the essentials. Qin Mu actually saw a man-made moon and a man-made galaxy. The moon and the stars in the galaxy weren't huge, those stars were circular and merely 300 yards big. On many of the stars was a palace each. Those stars could fit a palace precisely, and one more palace made it seem too squeezy. Those Taoists were currently roaming in the galaxy and changing the locations of the stars, forming star formations. Beside them were also some elderly Taoists teaching them how to lay their formation. Looking at the general overview of the sky, the formation of the stars, constellations, and galaxy could form the shape of a majestic god. The 2 galaxies formed the eyes of the god. The nebula formed the vein lines of the skin, and the stars formed the structure of the corporeal body. Heaven Duke. Qin Mu clicked his tongue in wonder and said with a smile, Clear Sky Heaven actually used the stars to forge the shape of Heaven Duke. This kind of standard in algebra is truly superior. Yu Chan said, This is natural. Our Tao sect is skilled in algebra, and this is why the celestial heavens view us importantly. letting us deduce the Heaven Tao and breaking down the structure of Heaven Duke's corporeal body. The Taoists of our clear sky heaven also frequently go to Xuandu to measure Heaven Duke's body structure. There are many disciples of Tao sect on Heaven Duke's body. The corner of Qin Mu's eyes twitched violently. The celestial heavens let Tao sect deduce the Heaven Tao and measure the structure of Heaven Duke's corporeal body. Moreover, they were even constructing Heaven Duke's corporeal body with stars in clear sky heaven. So what was the celestial heavens planning to do? He had a bad feeling in his heart. Replacing him. Heaven Duke is in danger. After getting rid of Heaven Duke, the celestial heavens wants to create another Heaven Duke. Even though your eternal peace's Tao sect is considered nothing at all, it is still a tiny branch from the true Tao sect. Yu Chun said to Lin Xian, "Since we are from the same sect, therefore I allow you to meet your ancestors." Taoist Cha raised his eyebrows and was rather displeased. Tao Master Lin Xian said, "Many thanks, senior brother Yu Chun." Yu Chun looked at Qin Mu and he frowned slightly. "As for Overlord Body Qin, you really shouldn't have followed me to Clear Sky Heaven. Heavenly Saint Cult is also called Heavenly Devil Cult. Subjugating devils is the responsibility of Tao sect. Furthermore, eternal peace is also a target that the celestial heavens wants to exterminate." Qin Mu looked at the sky and his gaze fell on Heaven Duke's body. He said with a smile, "Whether if an official business or personal business, I needed to come. If I didn't, the world is going to change." Yu Chun looked at him and felt his words held deep meaning, but he didn't think much about it. "Tao Palace is over there. Let me bring you to meet the sect master of my clear sky heaven. As for whether the sect master will be willing to meet you, I do not know." Tao Palace was located in the heart of clear sky heaven, and there were mountains standing in numbers around it. There were also 24 palace halls that surrounded Tao Palace, and these 24 palace halls should be corresponding to the 24 kingdom of gods under clear sky heaven. Clear sky heaven was clear sky sect, which was a branch of Tao sect that had become large-scale. Tao sect definitely still had other branches, so one could well imagine how astonishing the power of the true Tao sect was. Everyone came to the outside of Tao Palace and they got down their mounts. Yu Chun let them wait outside while he hurriedly scaled up the steps and headed for the Golden Palace at the peak. Those stone steps were built along the mountain and the numbers of steps were uncountable as they looked up the mountain. This is how they treat their guests. Taoist Cha smiled from anger, and he pulled out a military fork from his Tao crown. "We are still from Tao sect after all, and even if we aren't orthodox, there's no reason to throw us out here. Tao Master, let us fight our way in and turn their palace upside down first." Lin Xian waved his hand and said, "Since we are guests, we shall follow the host's decision. We can just take a look around." This Tao Palace was extremely huge, and there were numerous Taoists cultivating Tao skills. Qin Mu and the rest came to where the Taoists were training, and they saw numerous Taoists standing in front of a copper wall that was over dozens of yards thick, as an old Taoist explained slowly to them. "All things in the world are formed by countless particles. It's the same for a human body. It's the same for a copper wall. As long as you are able to see through that, you can change the structure of your body to vibrate the particles at the same frequency as the copper wall. That way you will be able to pass through the wall. Cultivating the art of passing through walls, any forbidden skills, any seals, will be of no trouble to you. Look at me." He walked to the front of the copper wall and slowly walked in. He passed through the wall and came out from the other side of the wall before returning back. "You can give it a try." The other young Taoists were all excited and went up to try. Some bloodied their forehead from crashing onto the wall, but there were also some that managed to pass through. That old Taoist narrowed his eyes and looked at these young Taoists cultivate. He would point out their mistakes from time to time. The Dragon Qilin looked curiously at this sight and couldn't resist saying, "Elder, you have one disciple missing. There were 17 earlier and now only 16 are left." The old Taoist counted and he was instantly flustered. He hurriedly smacked the copper wall with a heavy blow, and an inexperienced Taoist that was stuck inside the wall got smacked out by him. He gasped heavily for breath and had nearly died. That old Taoist looked at the Dragon Qilin and praised, "You have the root of wisdom. Are you willing to join my clear sky sect and cultivate with me?" The Dragon Qilin shook his head. The art of passing through walls from Tao sect seemed slightly similar to Heavenly Saint Cult's phantom illusion technique. It's also similar to Grandpa Cripple's heaven-pilfering sun-switching hand. Qin Mu looked over it and said to Celestial Venerable Yu, "It's just slightly different in using the reasoning. As long as the principles were understood, it isn't too difficult to learn." Celestial Venerable Yu was tempted to try and he said, "I've understood it, can I give it a try?" Qin Mu nodded. Celestial Venerable Yu walked to the front of the copper wall and passed through the wall. He then walked back as well. That old Taoist's eyes lighted up and he said with a smile, "This little brother has the root of wisdom." Qin Mu hurriedly pulled Celestial Venerable Yu away, and they came to the other side of Tao Palace. Some of the Taoists were gathered and drafting a map on a huge circular platform. Qin Mu moved forward to take a look and his expression changed drastically. He asked solemnly, "Senior brothers, are you guys drafting the sky map of the stars? Your eyesight is not bad, you the disciple of which kingdom of gods?" One of the Taoists raised his head and asked. Taoist Lin Xian went forward and his expression changed drastically when he saw that formation. "The sky map that shroud eternal peace is made by clear sky heaven?" Those few Taoists were stunned. The sky map that they were drafting was completely the same as the sky map in the sky of Eternal Peace Empire. The orbit of the stars in the formation diagram was exactly the same. Qin Mu, Lin Xian were all senior figures in Heaven Alliance, and the reason why they established Heaven Alliance was to tear down the fake sky, so the people of Eternal Peace could see the outside world. Tao Master of Eternal Peace Tao Sect had never been able to cultivate the 14th writing of Tao Sword. He had exhausted his life for the 14th writing of Tao Sword, and spent all his effort on deducing it. Lin Xian's master, the old Tao Master, had only cultivated half of the move after spending his whole life studying it. The reason old Tao Master had died in God-Broken Mountain Range was also because he didn't manage to cultivate the 14th sword. If he had, he wouldn't have to die in battle. It was because the astronomical phenomenon in the sky was fake. It had misled the past Tao Masters, and no matter how they calculated, the result would always be fake. That was why they couldn't cultivate the 14th writing. It was also because of this sky map that Lin Xian's Tao heart had also crumbled and went crazy on the spot. Luckily for him, Qin Mu, Su Shanghua and the rest were beside him, and it was them who had encouraged him. That was how he had walked out of the shadow. Now that he saw the sky map which the Taoists of Clear Sky Heaven were drafting, this caused his Tao heart to stir once again. His heart was filled with anger. Incomparably intense anger. Those few Taoists examined Qin Mu and Lin Xian. One of the Taoists then said with a smile, "You mean that sky map above Primordial Realm? It is indeed drafted by my Tao sect. My Tao sect is drafting the sky map on the Celestial Heavens orders to cover the sky of Primordial Realm. However, because they had created it in a hurry back then, many flaws have now appeared. We are planning to repair the sky map this time, and patch the places that are lacking." The other Taoist said, "The Celestial Heavens ordered Tao sect to draft the sky map, and so the seniors of our Tao sect had designed a few misconceptions that have endless calculations for the sky map. If the people of Primordial Realm observed the astronomical phenomenon and tried to calculate the marvel of the courses in the astronomical phenomenon, they will sink into an endless calculation. Thus, even though there are flaws in the sky map, these endless calculations can exhaust the intelligence of those outstanding talents, causing them to never find out that the astronomical phenomenon is fake. To be able to see that we are drafting the sky map, your attainments in algebra aren't shallow as well. Which kingdom of gods are you from?" Tao Master Lin Xian gritted his teeth and blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. The guest from the Celestial Heavens this time said that the sky map is damaged and wants us to repair it. Once the repairs are complete, nobody will be able to see any flaw anymore. Those Taoists said with a smile. Crunching sounds came from Tao Master Lin Xian's teeth and he said emotionlessly, "Cult Master Qin, please return. This is the personal business of my Tao sect." Qin Mu took a glance at him and shook his head. "This isn't the personal business of Tao sect. It is the official business of Heaven Alliance. Isn't the goal of Heaven Alliance at the start to tear apart this fake sky?" Tao Master Lin Xian spat out the blood and cracked teeth from his mouth and chuckled. Sky map, sky map. The sky map that had destroyed my Tao sect for 20,000 years is actually made by our own Tao sect. Master, are you seeing this from the heavens?" He bawled and 2 streaks of blood flowed down his cheeks. Swung. The Tao sword before him unsheathed and the sword light rushed into the clouds. Suddenly, Qin Mu placed his hand on his shoulder. The Elder of Heaven Alliance isn't so bad at holding his temper back, right? Qin Mu smiled warmly. Tao Master Lin Xian looked at his warm gaze and his furious Tao heart calmed down. He closed his eyes and after a moment, the sword qi that was rushing into the clouds returned back into the sheath. Qin Mu turned around and looked at those bewildered Taoists. He revealed an innocent smile and asked, "May I know where is the emissary from the celestial heavens?" Those few Taoists were subconsciously infected by his smile and weren't suspicious of him at all. They pointed to the top of Tao Palace and said, "The emissaries from the celestial heavens are right in Tao Palace. They have high positions, so the sect master is receiving them personally." Qin Mu hurriedly gave his thanks and looked at the formation diagram on the circular platform. His heart stirred and he said with a smile, "This formation diagram is only the formation for the courses of the astronomical phenomenon. The formation used for each of the astronomical phenomena, for example, the sun, the moon, would definitely be even more complicated. The course of every star is different and the power in every star is also different, thus the formations would be different. Senior brothers have truly been working hard. Truth to be told, I am also rather skilled in algebra, so I can help everyone solve some problems." One of the Taoists shook his head. "The formation of the stars are already laid out, there's no need to redesign it. Now we just need to calculate the sky map and patch the holes in it." Another Taoist shook his head and said, "You didn't hear them clearly just now. The emissaries of the celestial heavens had planned for us to recreate the sky map and for us to incorporate the divine art of the astronomical phenomenon in as well." "I see," that Taoist said with a smile. "That's why those senior brothers of Tao Sanctuary are so hard working these few days and burying their heads in work. Turns out they are designing the formations of the sky map." Another Taoist smiled and said, "I have asked the sect master and he said that we have to incorporate the divine art of the astronomical phenomenon into the sky, so in case countries like Eternal Peace appears from today onwards or if anyone from the lower bound tries to rebel, there would be no need to ask the four deities for help. We can just activate the sky map to descend the disasters. Even though the celestial heavens doesn't look down on a small country like Eternal Peace and can't bother themselves with them, it is indeed troublesome if they have to go and clear them up time and time again. Recreating the sky map saves a lot of time. No wonder so many people have come from the celestial heavens this time. Many of them seem to be under the main gods of the various stars. They are their disciples. Not only that, the disciples of four deities are also here. They are all at Tao Sanctuary, and guiding the senior and junior brothers on how to design the formation of the astronomical phenomenon." The corner of Qin Mu's eyes twitched. He held back the urge to pull out his sword and kill these Taoists. By incorporating the divine art of astronomical phenomenon into the sky map is truly evil. If the sky map is done, Eternal Peace will have no way to survive. Not only will Eternal Peace have no way to survive, but the eras from today onwards will also not have any power to rebel. They will not have any possibility of threatening the celestial heavens. The mastermind is the people from the celestial heavens. There's no use killing these Taoists. Qin Mu thought until here and asked, "Senior brothers, where is Tao Sanctuary?" One of the old Taoists raised a finger and said, "Tao Sanctuary is in front of Tao Palace. The emissaries are in Tao Palace and the subordinates are in Tao Sanctuary." Qin Mu gave his thanks and threw Tao Master Lin Xian a glance. Both of them left this place. Tao Master Lin Xian asked him, "Cult Master Qin, what are you planning?" Qin Mu raised his head to look at Tao Sanctuary that was up the mountain. He said solemnly, "To kill people." Tao Master Lin Xian was silent for a moment. "We have yet to meet the sect master of Clear Sky Sect. Are you just going to kill people straight away?" Qin Mu frowned and asked, "You are still harboring any hopes for Clear Sky Sect Master?" Tao Master Lin Xian shook his head and said emotionlessly, "I originally had, but after seeing the sky map, I have no hopes anymore. There's no greater sorrow than a dead heart." He had harbored the thoughts of meeting a fellow sect with the same principles, but after seeing the sky map, his Tao heart was struck down heavily again. Lin Xian sorted out his feelings and said righteously, "If you kill the people from the celestial heavens, you won't live to walk out of Clear Sky Heaven. Once these people created the sky map, no matter if it's Eternal Peace or Primordial Realm, everyone's fate will be sealed." If we are in the hands of the celestial heavens, we would truly have no way out, Qin Mu said calmly. Back then when we measure that the sky was 100,000 miles high and 1,000 yards thick, we had established Heaven Alliance. Didn't Heaven Alliance exist for the sake of overthrowing this sky? The chance is right in front of us now. As for our safety, we can put that behind us for now. We will talk about safety after we settle what we need to do. Tao Master Lin Xian was infected by his heroism, and he revealed a smile. Cult Master Qin, even though you and I are good friends, I always had some prejudice about you. I feel your conduct is eccentric, just like the conduct from those of the Devil Path. Even though I felt you are from the Devil Path, I don't know why, but I just admire you very much. I even fantasize of me being able to do something like you can, to not be overcautious and think about the consequences. Qin Mu laughed loudly. Tao Master Lin, do you still have the struggle of righteous and devil? Lin Xian said with a smile. I have been receiving such teachings from young, so it is hard for me to change completely. However, after meeting Cult Master Qin, I don't view what's called the righteous path and the devil path as important anymore. Even though I feel what Cult Master Qin does are eccentric, I can see you have the heart of a newborn. When I saw this, the difference between righteous and devil becomes even fainter. At many times, I am won over by your actions and how to handle matters. Qin Mu praised and said, Old Tao Master is truly wise to choose you as the next Tao Master. For Heavenly Devil Patriarch to choose you as Heavenly Saint Cult Master. He is then truly the wise one. Both of them laughed loudly and scaled up the stone steps to be talked cheerfully and wittily. They came to Tao Sanctuary unconsciously, and there were layers and layers of palaces in Tao Sanctuary. Several old Taoists came out in a fluster and shouted, Thief, thief! Green Goat Hall has been robbed. Many treasures got stolen. Qin Mu stopped in his footsteps and stopped an old Taoist to ask, Elder, has a thief came to clear sky heaven? That old Taoist nodded his head. I don't know what had happened, but that thief seemed to have cultivated our art of passing through walls. The seals of Green Goat Hall were completely untouched, but the treasures inside were all stolen. There are also a few Taoists that had their clothes stripped off and hung onto the trees. They were even tied up by their own gold dragon rope so they can't break free. This thief has appeared among us. It's definitely a disciple of our sect. Qin Mu was stunned. Suddenly, that old Taoist turned back and examined them before asking cautiously, Your faces are unfamiliar, where are you from? Qin Mu said with a smile, I'm Eternal Peace Overlord Body, Heavenly Saint Cult Master, Grand Chancellor of Eternal Peace Empire Heavenly Saint Academy, Qin Mu. This is Eternal Peace Empire Tao Sect's Tao Master. We heard that Clear Sky Sect was a branch of Tao Sect, so we are here to visit. That old Taoist looked at them from the left and right before circling twice around them. He sneered and said, So you are the poor relatives from the countryside here to claim riches and honor. I guess you won't have the abilities as well. Qin Mu smiled and kept quiet. That old Taoist hurriedly left and Qin Mu was suddenly stunned. He touched his waist urgently and his expression changed drastically. He was about to chase after that old Taoist, but that old Taoist was long gone. Qin Mu stopped and the corners of his eyes twitched. Tao Master Lin Xian asked bewilderedly, What happened, Cult Master Qin? One of my Tao Tai sack is missing. Qin Mu's face turned green and he gritted his teeth. It was stolen by that old Taoist earlier. Lin Xian jumped in shock and he asked, This kind of method isn't what a half-god of primordial realm could do. Instead, it seems like the work by an elder of Cult Master. However, that old Taoist didn't look like Cult Master Qin's elder. Wait a minute, I seem to have lost something as well. Taoist Cha hurriedly touched his body and cried out in astonishment. The fork in my Tao crown is missing. My spirit pills are much lesser, cried the dragon Qilin sorrowfully as though he had lost his family. The water Qilin's expression changed and hurriedly flipped through his spirit pills, but they were still there. Suddenly, he came to his senses. Where's my master? He was still on my back, how did I lose him? Everyone hurriedly looked and Celestial Venerable Yu, who was on the water Qilin's back, had vanished without a trace. When did Celestial Venerable Yu vanish? None of them actually noticed anything. Everyone felt apprehensive. Qin Mu took in a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He sneered and said, When the old thief strikes, he never returns empty-handed. Since he is often a thief, he never shows anyone his true face. His art of changing appearance is superior, being able to shift his bones and change his face, changing his height and weight. In addition to the creation technique I had taught him, even if he transformed into a woman and stand in front of me, I wouldn't be able to recognize him. Dao Master Lin Xian had a queer expression and he coughed. My Dao sect is also frequent by this senior. How worrisome. He will be caught and have his legs broken sooner or later. Qin Mu couldn't hate him and just continued to walk to Dao Sanctuary. This old thief has stolen throughout eternal peace and act like Samaritans with Grandpa blind daily, as though they had turned into a new leaf. Now that primordial realm has broke out of the seal, he must be the happiest. No wonder I didn't meet him in the capital city earlier. Clear Sky Heaven must not be the first to have suffered from his lethal hands. This old thief must have stolen from God knows how many sacred grounds and heavens. That's right, what have you lost? Dao Master Lin Xian's face turned black and he didn't say anything. However, looking from the queer way he was walking, his underwear must have been stolen by the old Taoist earlier, so he didn't have the face to say. Just as they entered Dao Sanctuary, a bunch of Taoists came running out and they cried out, "Have any of you seen those few old Taoists?" After they came, our Dao Sanctuary seems to have lost a number of items. Even the guests from the celestial heavens got robbed. Qin Mu raised a finger. Those few Taoists ran over there. Many thanks. The bunch of Taoists swarmed out, overflowing with killing intent. Find those few old Taoists and break their legs first so they can't run. Those few old Taoists are all senior uncles of Dao Palace. Do we also have to break their legs? Since they dared to steal from my Dao Sanctuary, they should have their legs broken. Soon, few people were left in Dao Sanctuary and only some oddly looking half-gods were left. They were currently looking at them. Qin Mu turned around and got the Dragon Qilin and the Water Qilin to keep a lookout outside Dao Sanctuary, while he closed the gate to Dao Sanctuary. He smiled at these half-gods and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am Qin Mu, one of the 3 heroes in Eternal Peace's reform. I'm also known as Eternal Peace Overlord Body, Heavenly Saint Cult Master. This person beside me is Dao Master Lin Xian of Eternal Peace Dao Sect. Have any of you heard about our titles?" Those half-gods had the image of various ancient star gods. Saturn Sovereign's disciples had human heads and snake bodies. Mars Sovereign's disciples have bull heads and human bodies. Great Sun Sovereign's disciples had bird heads and 3 legs. They were all different and rarely would they have a complete human form. These half-gods swept their gaze over Qin Mu and Dao Master Lin Xian. The half-god with a wolf head and human body should be the disciple of Wood Wolf of Kuei Star Sovereign. And he said nonchalantly, "Eternal Peace Overlord Body Qin? I've never heard of you before." In the remaining Taotai sack on Qin Mu, his sword pellet slowly rose up and he grasped it gently. The sword pellet transformed into a horsetail whisk in his hand, and he had a face that was full of smiles. "Everyone here is about to hear of me, but it shall also be the last time you will hear of me." Dao Master Lin Xian threw away his horsetail whisk and pulled out his sword. Sword light scattered out and it was instantly the 14th writing of Dao's sword. Dao nourishes the earth of all heavens, giving birth to all laws, and the whole world will return to one. At the same time, the sword pellet in Qin Mu's hand expanded in the wind. Threads of horsetail whisk stretched out furiously, and the fine swords were like slender dragons that instantly became dozens of miles long. They pierced through every single corridor and palace inside of Dao Sanctuary. With the hair of the horsetail as swords, every thread was executing a different sword skill. Since Daoist Cha had lost his military fork, he could only help them suppress the situation. In Dao Sanctuary, angry roars rang out non-stop and apparitions of stars and constellation rose into the sky above Dao Sanctuary. Just as they rose up and transformed into a galaxy, a magnetic force burst forth and pulled the galaxy down from the sky to smash ruthlessly onto the ground. None of them could actually escape from Dao Sanctuary. After a moment, everything was calm again. Qin Mu opened up the gate of Dao Sanctuary, and he walked out with Lin Xian behind him. Daoist Cha followed behind both of them and turned around to close the gate. From the gaps of the gate, fresh blood slowly poured out. Cloud Sky Heaven's Dao Palace was in chaos. Numerous Daoists were flying in the sky, while some were running on the ground to look for the thieves. When the incident of the Dao Sanctuary being robbed came to light, the other sanctuaries and palaces realized that it wasn't only the Dao Sanctuary that was robbed. They had all been plundered. However, those thieves were truly crafty. Even after the treasure vaults were swiped clean, no one had actually noticed anything. It was only after the treasures on these Taoists got stolen that it raised some attention. Even the Tao Palace was robbed. Numerous old Taoists hurriedly ran to the treasure vault, and over a dozen Taoists on the God realm stayed guard outside while the rest opened up the seal. They poured into the vault to see if any treasures were missing. Tao Master Lin Xian saw the chaotic side of the Clear Sky sect, and he said with a smile, "Cult Master Qin, when your elder came to my Tao sect, it was also this chaotic. Every time he came, the senior uncles of my Tao sect would search the entire mountain for traces of him. They even raised a few divine hounds to deal with him specifically." Qin Mu's head started to ache and he said helplessly, "In the past when Grandpa Cripple's cultivation wasn't high, you guys could still take him down. Now that he has cultivated to the God realm and cultivated creation techniques, he can even hide his own body odor. It would be rather impossible to take him down now." Both of them acted like everything had nothing to do with them as they continued to climb up the mountain. It was as if the death of the Star God's disciples had nothing to do with them. Some Taoists hurriedly flew down from the sky to borrow a few divine hounds, divine mastiffs, and divine rats from the kingdoms of gods under their jurisdiction. They also invited some constables and searched around. Qin Mu and Tao Master Lin Xian chatted 1 minute and became quiet the next as they walked up the mountain at a leisurely pace. Taoist Cha, the dragon Qilin, and the water Qilin followed them. Some Taoists stopped them and let them go after some questioning. "Will Lan Yutian be fine?" Tao Master Lin Xian asked. "Not a big problem." Even though that was what Qin Mu said, his head was about to explode. Brother Yu doesn't have any memory of the past, so he is like a piece of blank paper now. The most beautiful painting can be painted, but doodles can also mess everything up. I am very worried that he will pick up the bad habit of pilfering. Can pilfering cause such a huge commotion? Tao Master Lin Xian asked with a smile. Grandpa Cripple's rule is that a thief never walks away empty-handed. Qin Mu said seriously, as long as he makes a move, he has to steal the best item. After stealing from all of us, he realized there was nothing of value on Lan Yuqian's body, and thus he took him away. I'm not worried about Brother Yu's safety. I'm just worried that he will be corrupted by bad examples. Thief God should have brought Lan Yuqian to escape Clear Sky Heaven already, am I right? Escape? Impossible. Grandpa Cripple is a person who loves noise and excitement. He is definitely still in the Tao Palace now and has changed his appearance, following those Taoists to search for traces of the thieves. Both of them finally came to the Tao Palace, which was at the peak of the mountain. It was as though the Tao Palace was facing a dangerous enemy, as numerous Taoists walked in and out. They executed all kinds of treasures, such as mirrors to shine everywhere, as they searched for traces of the thieving old Taoists. A young Taoist hurried out of the palace and was stunned when he met Qin Mu and Tao Master Lin Xian. He lowered his voice and asked, "Why have you guys come up the mountain?" "I just told the sect master that you have come to visit, but the Tao Palace has been robbed, so the sect master has no time to meet you guys." That Taoist was none other than Yu Chun. Qin Mu was slightly stunned, and he said loudly, "Eternal Peace Overlord Body Qin and Eternal Peace Tao Sect Tao Master Lin Xian are here to pay our respects to Clear Sky Sect Master and the emissaries of the Celestial Heavens." "Clear Sky Sect Master, you are merely a branch of the Tao Sect, so why aren't you coming out to welcome us?" His voice was loud as it rushed up from the bottom of the mountain to explode in the air of Clear Sky Heaven. His voice spread throughout the Clear Sky Tao Palace and the 24 halls. The Taoists that were searching for the thieving old Taoists couldn't help stopping when they heard this voice, and they all looked over. The atmosphere became incomparably heavy in a split second. Taoist Yu Chen's expression changed slightly. Tao Master Lin Xian looked down at his heart, and he was unfazed. He had already expected Qin Mu to act this way, so he said leisurely, "Cult Master Qin is the eternal peace overlord body that's unmatched for eternity. Now that you have put out your name, there will probably be many people in the Tao Palace that want to kill you." Qin Mu smiled and said, "There are many people that want to kill me in the world, yet I'm still alive. Even though I have the title of Overlord Body, I have still fought my way out for this title. It's not just adulation. You shouldn't worry about me, you should worry about yourself." By calling Clear Sky Sect a branch of the Tao Sect, Would clear sky heaven still leave you be? Tao Master Lin Xian waved his horsetail whisk and laughed. Taoist Yu Chun frowned and he shouted softly, "Neither of you knows your place. I saw that we are from the same sect, which is why I let you up the mountain. You guys could have come up quietly, and the sect master would meet you quietly, giving you some benefits and letting you go down. Now that you have put out your name, would the emissaries of the celestial heavens still tolerate you?" Just as he said that, an old voice came from Dao Palace. "Yu Chanzi, invite the little friend from Eternal Peace Dao sect and Overlord Body Qin in." Taoist Yu Chun was helpless, and he could only bow in acknowledgement. "Follow me. You guys are in trouble. It's hard to say if you can even leave alive." Qin Mu said with a smile, "Senior brother Yu Chun, we are also not the poor relatives that are coming up for money. Who cares about the emissaries of the celestial heavens? Didn't Prince Cho Ming of the celestial heavens also get killed by me? Senior brother had extremely high knowledge and vast horizons when you were at Deer County. So why have you become so unbearable when you are back in the Dao sect?" Taoist Yu Chun frowned and led them into the Dao Palace. He shook his head and said, "You guys don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Both of them smiled faintly and walked into the Dao Palace under everyone's gazes. In the Dao Palace, the palace hall was extremely vast, having a radius of 300 yards. However, the strange thing was that there was no roof above. This Dao Palace had an open roof, and there was sunlight shining down. Qin Mu looked in detail and saw that because there was no roof, the light from the sun, moon, and stars could shine down. Furthermore, space here seemed to be rather strange. Once the sun passed by, the rays of the moon would shine here, forever illuminating the Dao Palace. And for the man-made stars and galaxy in the sky, after the light was gathered, they looked much bigger from here than anywhere else. He could even rely on his naked eye to see the vein lines and palaces on the stars without any divine art. The stars were bright and colorful, making it a very wonderful sight. At this moment, in the main hall of the Dao Palace, there were already dozens of old Taoists sitting on praying mats and floating in the air. They had all kinds of auspicious qi lingering around them. Those old Taoists looked old, and it wasn't known how long they had lived for. Their long brows and long hair were snow-white, and they sat there motionless. They opened their blurry eyes and had a serene expression. Even though their eyes were blurry, terrifying light would burst forth from their eyes from time to time. It was evident that their cultivation was immeasurably deep. There were also some Taoists that looked much younger, but it was only in comparison to the old Taoists. These Taoists weren't young, and they all had white hair. Even their clothes were turning white from washing too much. Some had tattered Tao robes, and some of their shoes were already torn, revealing several toes. Qin Mu looked around, and he noticed a few people that wore fresher clothes. One of them was a middle-aged man that wore a yellow-colored Tao crown with a purple cord on a seal around his body. There was a horsetail whisk in his hand and a sword on his waist. He must be the sect master of Clear Sky Heaven. The others should be the guests from the celestial heavens, and they were all very young. Most of them were youths that had delicate facial features, and they were looking curiously at Qin Mu and Dao Master Lin Xian who were walking in. The strange thing was that Clear Sky Sect Master wasn't sitting at the highest position. He was sitting one level below them, which showed that his position was slightly lower than those youths. Those youths also weren't sitting in the highest position. On the highest position was the god statue of Tao Ancestor. It should be a wooden sculpture that was from a very long time ago. That sculpture was about 30 yards tall, and it was a sloppy Taoist that had a horsetail whisk on his back. There was a strange compass in his hand as he bowed with the compass stretched forward. The gaze of the sloppy Taoist was on the compass. The wooden sculpture was remarkably true to life and was very vivid. "It's indeed him." Qin Mu revealed a smile. This sloppy Taoist was that Taoist that he had met in the Jade Pool meeting. The one that had attended the meeting with the young Brahma Buddha. Back then, the Taoist didn't do anything at all and just research his algebra daily while Brahma went around begging for spirit pills, relying on his spirit pills to keep both of them alive. Moreover, Brahma had quite the temper and was insistent on not taking more than the spirit pills he had begged for. He said that it would spoil his cultivation. The Tao sect of the lower bound was established by the exiled disciples of the Tao sect. They once assisted founding emperor during founding emperor era and did things that are rebellious, so they are actually guilty. The position of Clear Sky Sect Master was very high, and he looked at Lin Xian and Daoist Cha from high above. He explained the origin of Eternal Peace's Dao sect and said at a steady pace, "On the other hand, my Clear Sky Heaven is also called Clear Sky Sect. It was established by the disciples taught personally by Dao Master when they came to reside here. Back then, after founding Emperor's Rebellion, Clear Sky Heaven lay hidden in the heavens of the primordial realm and sealed the sky of eternal peace on orders. With the rules of the celestial heavens, Eternal Peace's Dao sect was to be eradicated, but it was me who pleaded with the celestial heavens to spare you guys. Little friend Lin, you just said that my Clear Sky Heaven is a branch of your Dao sect. Now do you know the whole story?" One of the old Taoists beside him sneered and said, "Little friend Lin, aren't you going to pay your respects to Sect Master?" Dao Master Lin Xian bowed and greeted Clear Sky Sect Master, "Senior brother." All of the Taoists frowned and they shouted, "Absolutely disgraceful! Why aren't you kneeling down?" Lin Xian greeted, and his greeting was a greeting to another person of the same seniority. According to the rules, it should be the greeting of a junior to a senior, kneeling 3 times and kowtowing 9 times. Qin Mu said with a smile, "Since you are both from the Dao sect, for him to kneel and worship, can you take the greeting when you aren't even Dao Ancestor? I have the 3 treasures that Dao Ancestor handed down. The horsetail whisk, the Dao shoes, and the Dao crown that represents Dao Ancestor. So naturally I can take little friend Lin's kneel and worship." Clear Sky Sect Master had a snow-white gaze as he looked at Qin Mu. Eternal Peace's Heavenly Saint Cult Master, also known as Overlord Body Qin Mu. Little friend Lin is of the same sect, and I also acknowledge him as a junior brother so he doesn't need to kneel. But why are you not paying your respects to me? Qin Mu was speechless and he burst out into laughter. "Let's not say how you can't take my worship. Even if Dao Ancestor comes here personally, he also can't take my worship. If I worship you, your lifespan will be reduced." Clear Sky Sect Master waved his horsetail whisk and said leisurely, "Eternal Peace, merely a small country. Any one of the 24 kingdoms of gods under my Clear Sky Heaven is no smaller than Eternal Peace Empire. You are merely the cult master of a small sect in a small country. I can take your worship." He gave a faint smile and said, "Behind me are the emissaries of the celestial heavens. They represent the celestial heavens and symbolize the authority of Celestial Emperor. They also can take your worship. Overlord Bodychin, you can kneel and worship now." Those few youths from the celestial heavens sat on their thrones and looked at Qin Mu with much interest. Qin Mu laughed loudly and shook his head. "Since Sect Master wants me to worship, I should worship Dao Ancestor first. Little brats of the celestial heavens, fall back. Don't block Dao Ancestor." Clear Sky Sect Master frowned and left his throne. Those few youths from the celestial heavens also gave off soft laughter and left their seats. Qin Mu walked forward and raised his head to look at the wooden sculpture of the sloppy Taoist. He said with a smile, "Old Taoist, Mu has come to visit you. Your disciples have asked me to worship you. I'm going to kneel down right now." Just as he lifted the corner of his clothes, that wooden sculpture of Dao Ancestor suddenly exploded into pieces with a loud bang. All of the old Taoists in the Dao Palace jumped in shock. After seeing the wooden sculpture of Dao Ancestor split apart, Dao flames suddenly burst out and burned the sculpture into ashes. Qin Mu laughed loudly and didn't kneel down. He turned around to face Clear Sky Sect Master and said loudly, "Old Taoist, your disciples want me to worship your Dao crown, Dao shoes, and horsetail whisk. To worship these 3 treasures means that I'm worshiping you. In that case, here's my worship." The moment he tried to kneel down, the Dao crown on Clear Sky Sect Master's head suddenly exploded with a pop. The horsetail whisk in his hand suddenly burst into flames, and the Dao shoes on his feet instantly turned into ashes. Qin Mu straightened his back and looked at the helpless Clear Sky Sect Master. He said with a smile that was yet not a smile, "Sect Master, now you know you can't take my worship. Even Dao Ancestor can't take my worship. Take back your awe-inspiring authority." Clear Sky Sect Master's hair was messy, and he threw away the horsetail whisk that had turned into ashes. He stood there barefoot, not knowing what to do. The other old Taoists were astonished and they were also at a loss. Is the Overlord body that powerful? Even Dao Ancestor doesn't dare to take his worship. It was silent in Dao Palace. Those few emissaries from the celestial heavens also frowned. They have heard about the overlord body when other people were gossiping that in a small place called Eternal Peace of the Lower Bound, there was an eternal peace overlord body that was said to be unmatched throughout the ages. When the gods in the celestial heavens talked about this, they were all laughing and saying how a person from a small place was bragging all the way to the celestial heavens. Most of them only treated it as small talk and no one ever discussed it seriously. When they heard Qin Mu calling himself the overlord body just now, they almost burst out into laughter. Yet Dao Ancestor's reaction was completely out of their expectation. Dao Ancestor would rather destroy his statue and not take Qin Mu's worship. It looked like this overlord body wasn't as simple as what the gods of the celestial heavens had thought. Suddenly, one of the youngest youth among the emissaries clapped his hands and laughed loudly. The clapping sounds woke everyone up from their daze. That young Taoist said with a smile, "Fantastic, truly fantastic. Eternal Peace Overlord body actually dares to destroy the god statue of Dao Ancestor, and even destroy the 3 sect treasures in front of Sect Master, as expected of the Overlord body." Everyone came to a realization and an old Taoist raised his finger to point at Qin Mu. He shouted, "You rascal, you destroy Dao Ancestor's statue of our clear sky heaven, and even use some dark techniques to shatter the 3 treasures of our Dao sect. Our Dao sect and you cannot exist together." The other Taoists were about to berate when Clear Sky Sect Master shouted fiercely, "Shut up!" Silence fell upon Dao Palace once again. Clear Sky Sect Master looked wretched, and other than shock in his heart, it was still shock. He had not an ounce of anger at all. That was because he didn't dare. He had thought much further ahead than the other Taoists. Even though Qin Mu's cultivation was not weak and was considered a top-notch practitioner below the god realm, he couldn't destroy Dao Ancestor's god statue. He also couldn't destroy the 3 treasures. The 3 treasures of Clear Sky Sect was Dao Ancestor's treasure. Dao Ancestor was in existence of Emperor's Throne Realm, and even though his 3 treasures were all things that were used daily by a strong practitioner on Emperor's Throne Realm was not ordinary. It was impossible for Qin Mu to use any peculiar divine arts to destroy these 3 treasures. Furthermore, if Qin Mu made a move, he wouldn't have been able to deceive the eyes of the experts on board. What destroyed the 3 treasures was the 3 treasures themselves. These 3 treasures had actually destroyed themselves. It was the same for Dao Ancestor's god statue as well. This also meant that Dao Ancestor affirmed that he wasn't worthy of Qin Mu's worship. That was why he destroyed his god statue and the 3 treasures. "Salute!" Clear Sky Sect Master suddenly said. Numerous Taoists in Dao Palace were stunned. However, since Sect Master has given the order, so they couldn't go against it. They could only get up and form 2 lines to bow towards Qin Mu. Qin Mu took a glance at those emissaries from the celestial heavens, and the youngest youth that had spoken earlier frowned. He whispered something to the other youths beside him, and Qin Mu didn't know what they were talking about. Looks like the youngest one is then their leader. Qin Mu looked and he waved his hand. "Please rise. Where is my seat?" Clear Sky Sect Master hesitated for a moment and ordered someone to fetch a seat. He placed the seat in front of the burning god statue, and the position was even higher than the emissaries from the celestial heavens. Qin Mu sat down and looked around him with a smile. "Dao Master Lin Xian is a Dao friend on the same seniority as me. He needs to have a seat as well." Clear Sky Sect Master frowned and ordered someone to fetch another chair over. Dao Master Lin Xian sat beside Qin Mu, and Qin Mu said with a smile, "Everyone please take a seat." Clear Sky Sect Master bowed and gave his thanks before leading a bunch of Taoists to sit down respectively. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and thought to himself, "Looks like Dao Ancestor is still alive and not yet dead. I just don't know if he is in the hands of the extraterritorial celestial heavens, or if he is in the hands of the ancient god that's already dead. I really can't understand this old Taoist." He didn't know if Dao Ancestor would still look back on the friendship of the past. During Dragon Han era, he had given Dao Ancestor and Brahma Buddha some guidance and left behind a friendship. When Celestial Venerable Yu had died, it was Qin Mu who had imparted the techniques and taught everyone the path of immortality. Dao Ancestor was also one of the people that had listened. However, whether or not this kind of friendship could withstand the corrosion of benefits in time, Qin Mu wasn't sure at all. Luckily, Dao Ancestor didn't dare to take his worship. so he didn't get surrounded by Clear Sky sect. Qin Mu looked at those few emissaries and he smiled. Dao friends from the extraterritorial celestial heavens, please take a seat. Those youths frowned and the youngest Taoist said with a smile, no need to worry, let us take a sit first. In front of me, he can't do much. Just as they sat down, those few Taoists sprinted over here in a hurry with a flustered expression. Before he even reached here, they cried out loudly, bad news! The disciples of the star gods have all died in Dao Sanctuary. What? An uproar burst out in Dao Palace. The old Taoists that had just sat down got up again, and they revealed looks of astonishment. The few emissaries of the celestial heavens were also furious and astonished. They slammed the table and shouted angrily. Clear Sky Sect Master got up and gripped his fists. Veins popped out on his forehead and his back was covered in cold sweat. That young Taoist from the celestial heavens continued to sit on the throne and asked coldly, Fu Yuntian, what is going on? The disciples of the star gods dying in Clear Sky Heaven. How should you be dealt with? Beads of cold sweat rolled down Clear Sky Sect Master's forehead and he bowed. Emissary, please calm down. This disciple isn't clear with his words. Let me get to the bottom of this. With a hoarse voice, he stretched his hand out to grab those few Taoists and asked fiercely, the disciples of the star gods have died in Dao Sanctuary. Is this true or false? Has everyone died? Is there anyone that had escaped? What are the people in Dao Sanctuary doing? How did they let the murderer get his way there? Where are they? His heart was flustered and rambled on continuously like a barrage of gunfire. He made those young Taoists unable to reply him in time. Only then did Clear Sky Sect Master came back to his senses and hurriedly put them down. He slowed down and said calmly, since it has already happened, tell us slowly and clearly. One of the Taoists hurriedly explained, Sect Master, a few senior uncles had come to Dao Sanctuary at first and one of them was Senior Uncle Tian Hong. He walked around in Dao Sanctuary and told us that Green Goat Palace had been robbed and cleaned out by the thieves. They had come over to check if the thieves had infiltrated into Dao Sanctuary. Clear Sky Sect Master nodded his head and said, they were sent over by me to inform you guys. They are elders of Dao Palace. Dao Palace was where the elders of Clear Sky Heaven resided in and Dao Sanctuary was the place to research the past, skills and divine arts. Dao Sanctuary was mostly filled with young disciples that had nimble thoughts and fast reactions. That Taoist took a glance at him and said carefully, after that, our Dao Sanctuary got robbed. It was done by Senior Uncle Tian Hong among those few senior uncles that Sect Master has sent to inform us. First, a senior brother realized his treasure was missing. Then everyone realized they got robbed as well. Their best treasures that they used daily were stolen without any of them knowing. Thus everyone rushed out to find those few senior uncles. Clear Sky Sect Master frowned and said, everyone went out? That Taoist hurriedly said, the disciples of the star god had stayed behind to draft the formation diagram of the constellations. They weren't robbed. When we came out we realized that all the palace had got robbed. 24 halls, 12 sanctuaries, they were all stolen from. We searched around and found Senior Uncle Tian Hong, who got stripped of his clothes and thrown into the treasure vault of Dharma Hall. Smelly socks and underwear were even stuffed in his mouth and his primordial spirit was sealed. That thief disguised himself as Senior Uncle Tian Hong to rob our Clear Sky Heaven. We sealed Clear Sky Heaven and planned to find this thief when we walked past Dao Sanctuary and flowing out from the gap. We opened up the door and saw that the senior brothers from the celestial heavens all dead inside. Clear Sky Sect Master gritted his teeth and said coldly, luring the enemies away from their territory. This thief lured you guys away, so he could lay his hands on the emissaries of the celestial heavens. Have you found the thief? Not yet. When we hurried over earlier, we heard someone had sealed Senior Aunt Yu Zhao's primordial spirit and stuffed underwear in her mouth. She was buried and had rice straw over her head. Clear Sky Sect Master finally couldn't hold back his anger, and was about blow up when Qin Mu gave a cough. He said calmly and indifferently, Sect Master, your Clear Sky Heaven has indeed been robbed. Even we had our stuff stolen. However, it wasn't the thief that had killed the disciples of the star gods. It was that me and Taoist Lin Xian that had done it. When he said that, Dao Palace was in an uproar. Clear Sky Sect Master's mind was blown and everything in front of his eyes turned black. He stumbled slightly. Qin Mu sat on the throne and his finger gently tapped on the dragon head armrest on the throne. He said indifferently, "I'm here as a guest and Dao Master Lin is here to visit his relatives. We shouldn't have taken our own initiative to kill in the host's house." However, the guests of the host were trying to plot against eternal peace and refine some kind of sky map to destroy eternal peace. Since they are hostile to us, in that case we can only make a move. We are upright people that don't do any shady stuff. Since we have killed those dogs of the celestial heavens, we naturally have to inform Sect Master. Clear Sky Sect Master's mind was in a mess and the other Taoists were all at a loss. They just looked at him with blank expressions and waited for him to speak. That young Taoist from the celestial heavens suddenly stood up and said coldly, "Fu Yuntian, the disciples of the star gods have died in Clear Sky Heaven. You can't handle the responsibility for this crime. Now that you know the murderer is right in front of us, what are you waiting for? Are you waiting for Clear Sky Heaven to be wiped out?" Clear Sky Sect Master gripped his hands and turned to look at Qin Mu. Qin Mu said indifferently, "Dao Ancestor hasn't said anything yet. Is Sect Master going to take matters into your own hands? Why aren't you asking Dao Ancestor?" That young Taoist turned around to look at Qin Mu and he chuckled. "Dao Ancestor's god statue got destroyed by you. How is he supposed to contact Dao Ancestor?" "Overlord Body Qin Mu, you have first destroyed the god statue of Dao Ancestor before destroying his 3 treasures. Now you have also killed the disciples of the 360 star gods and is trying to pin the blame on Clear Sky Heaven, destroying the philosophy of Dao Ancestor. You are harboring unfathomable motives and deserve to die." Qin Mu laughed and said leisurely, "Sect Master should still have other methods to contact Dao Ancestor, am I right? Aren't you going to do it?" Clear Sky Sect Master was out of his wits and he gritted his teeth. He turned around to leave and said solemnly, "Where I meditate have a painting of Dao Ancestor. Let me ask for his opinion. As for the other people..." He stopped and frowned before saying with a low voice, "Look after them, don't let them take even half a step out of Clear Sky Heaven." One old Taoist asked softly, "What about the emissaries of the celestial heavens?" "Including the emissaries of the celestial heavens." Clear Sky Sect Master hurried away. Qin Mu stood up and yawned. He walked down the steps and walked out of the palace. He said with a smile, "Borrowing power from the good wind, sending me up to the clear sky. Clear Sky Heaven is truly a good place. Can I reach heaven in a single bound?" The young Taoist from the celestial heavens also stood up and followed behind him. He said with a smile, "You can reach heaven in a single bound or you can also miss your footing and fall into the pits of hell." Dao Master Lin Xian threw glances to Taoist Cha and both of them walked out of Dao Palace. "Your bearing is extraordinary. How do I address you?" Qin Mu walked out of Dao Palace and he asked that young Taoist. "Dao Sect of the Celestial Heavens, Dao Ancestor's direct disciple, Xiao Chunfeng." That young Taoist said indifferently, "Even though I'm a disciple of Dao Ancestor, I've never met Dao Ancestor before. The reason why I entered Dao Sect was only for an honorary title to learn the spells and divine arts of Dao Sect only. With my family's position, being Dao Ancestor's disciple is an honor to Dao Ancestor." Qin Mu's heart stirred and he asked, "Could brother be the son of some ancient god?" That young Taoist was astonished and he praised, "Overlord Body Qin's reputation is not undeserved. I am the son of goddess of Great Moon. No wonder your surname is Xiao. You follow your mother's surname." Qin Mu said with a smile, "Great Moon Sovereign is the ancient god of the moon, a god on par with Great Sun Sovereign. However, looking at how young you are, Great Moon Sovereign must have hooked up with someone to give birth to you." The corners of Xiao Chuanfeng's eyes twitched. Qin Mu was full of smiles. "When I killed the disciples of the star gods earlier with Dao Master Lin, I didn't see any disciples of the 4 deities. May I ask where are they?" "We are right here." Behind him, those few men and women of the celestial heavens said coldly. Qin Mu turned around and said, "Which one of you is the disciple of South Deity?" One young girl in red said, "I am." Qin Mu examined this young woman carefully and nodded his head gently. He said with a smile, "South Deity and I go way back. I won't kill you. Senior brothers of the celestial heavens, the overlord body is right here. Who is coming to die?"